On the council for all the 2025 and the beautiful summer days with the great down to work. Need a motion to accept the agenda, moved by Becky, seconded by Yetna. In addition to the agenda, Council Way.
Yeah, I'd like to add to, under new business, Hare Street Cemetery has a personal request.
Okay.
I'd like to discuss.
And Councilor Frederick.
I'm just wondering if we should be asking the fire chief if we should have a fire
Fire van. I'm sure that'll come up in the fire chief report. Okay, anything further? And the agenda as amended, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof? Seeing none. Move right on to the July 8th, 2025 minutes. Any errors or nothing? Not sorry. Hold those.
Go to approve.
Move it approved, do it seconded by Bookner. And any errors or omissions? Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Business arising from those minutes, clerk's report, CL 44, the mover and seconded. Moved by Gillis, seconded by Way. Any discussion on it? Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? There are a couple minutes, right? So before we get to the first committee of adjustment, since we're amended good. I think it was at the last meeting, the meeting before. We agreed that the mayor would give up all powers or as many powers as it could for strong mayor powers. And interestingly enough, the mayor has a 48-hour veto of any bylaws 48 hours after they're passed. And which basically means that the bylaw doesn't come into effect for 48 hours, give the mayor a chance to veto it. The last thing I'm going to do is veto a bylaw created by council. And so the process for that, and this is in an attempt to make government run more smoothly. Efficiently, the process is that I now have to sign a letter of consent saying that I give up that 48-hour veto. And the Star Council should be aware. So at the end of the meeting, after we pass all the bylaws, I can be signing this each and every meeting. So, in the name of efficiency, we move forward. That doesn't use up the next 4 minutes, so the next 3 minutes. Mail, is there something, did you want to do appointment of the auditor? Okay.
It reports CAO 15/2025 to Port Council today, with the recommendation that we reappoint our existing auditor, Christine A. Scrimger of Scrimger and Company Chartered Accountants. The report outlines the fact that the firm has done the audit of the municipality for quite a few years. We have to reappoint every 5 years based on the Municipal Act. So the recommendation is before council today to recommend appointment of Christine from 2025 to 2027 to give us some stability. And then following that, potentially for the 2028 audit market, for an audit proposal. The fee is going to be the same with just cost of living for 2025 moving forward 2027.
Any questions on this report? Councilor Cleary.
Yeah, that was my question, if there was gonna be an increase. I move approval. The Irish Scrimger.
Seconded by Councilor Yetman. Any further discussion? I think this makes a lot of sense in that We're gonna have to change at administration. And so it might be handy to have the same auditor for a couple of years and then, the new council will decide whether they're happy with the auditor in the future or whether they want to change it as well, so. I think it's a good recommendation and it's something to support it. Any further comments or questions? Being none, then the motion is, Councillor Seaport CEO 2015-2025 information for the council for the appointment of Christine Scrimger, CAO Scrimger and Company Chartered Accountants, the municipal auditor for the council surplus officer for the audit years of 25, 26, and 27. In discussion? None, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And I guess that can move us back to, our committee of adjustment. The motion to end the committee of adjustment moved by Gillis, seconded by Buchner. Any discussion? Being none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And second for that. Okay. For the public, you may not notice any difference, but we are now the committee of adjustment and not council. One of the interesting parts of the Planning Act and that sort of stuff. And so now we're into the minor variance applications that fall, or at least the applications that fall under the Planning Act, but we issue a committee of adjustment. So process is similar for all of them. The applicant gets an opportunity, or sorry, the planner presents a report, council asks questions on, committee of adjustment asks questions for clarification, then the applicant can make any comments they want. Then we turn over to the public, when the public can speak in favor or opposed. And then council will eventually make a decision within the committee of adjustment. Yeah, okay. So the same process, I think there's four applications this morning. And so we'll get right to that. Need a motion and committee of adjustment to accept the agenda, moved by Pritchard, second by White. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Any declaration of any interest? Seeing none. We need to appoint the clerk as the secretary. No?
Yes.
Okay, so I need a motion that then it's the secretary, moved by Gillis, second by Thurston. Any discussion? All those in favor? So that's carried. And now we have minutes of the previous meeting. I believe it's July 8th. Any discussion? Any questions on that? I'll moving, seconded by Wade, moved by Whitmer, seconded by Wade. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Councillor, please.
Just a question about application AOA 2025, page 6 of 9. At the bottom there, 1 and 2 of the Planning Act refers to the container, and as far as I know, this application didn't have a container on property. It was the previous meeting of the council before that the one for the Albrights had the container. Is that right, Laurel?
That's correct. It was the Albright application that had the current.
So we'll make that correction. As amended, then the motion is as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Right, we're down to the minor variant applications. The first one is AO 724, patent and request to extend. Kevin, did you want to say anything?
Joe, I just, the process is taking some time, Mr. Mayor, councilors, staff. We need more time. They're asking for more engineering, more studies, more reports, drawn on your TDO, your roads department to supply, and they've been very helpful.
And so the extension would be for how long?
Well, that's a good question. I have no faith in the system right now, so I'm asking for another year because I never anticipated it would take a year to get this far, but the questions keep coming, whether they're relevant or not. And so I don't want to disturb it to do this again, so I'm asking for an extension of up to a year. Hopefully it's done much quicker, but.
Okay. Any questions from council on this? Oh, sorry, Laurel, did you want to make any, sorry? should have asked you first. If you want to make any comments on this report?
That's fine, through you, Chair Mayberry, I did speak with with Spencer McDonald, who managed the file. Before I was, placed here in South Stockford, and, no, we will move as quickly as possible once the Conservation Authority has addressed the issues. No comment at this point.
Okay, questions for clarification from council? Seeing none, there's a deferral, so I'm not sure we need a public, so there'll be a public meeting later.
That's correct.
Okay, so, anyone in the public want to argue a deferral? Good, we have a motion then to defer for a year, moved by Ipma, second by Gillis. Any discussion? Oh, yeah, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried, every year. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you later. The next one is, submitted by Dean Scott, A0924. For a minor variance. Dean here?
Yes.
One up, Dean, to state please. Morning, just go ahead and sit down.
Okay.
Okay, so I explained the process, we'll start with Laurel and then we'll actually do it right first time. Why?
Thank you, Chair Mayberry, members of the committee, staff, council, and the audience. And thank you, Mr. Scott, for being here today. So, the applicant has proposed relief from two provisions of the zoning bylaw to basically facilitate a new residential accessory structure, a new garage to be located in the rear yard. And it would replace the existing garage. The other, proposed relief is to permit the existing cargo container that is on the property. In speaking with Mr. Scott, like others, he did not realize that cargo containers were not permitted on residential properties. And we spoke about the previous application, the Albright application, that recommended conversion of a cargo container to an accessory structure to allow it to stay on the property, and Mr. Scott supports that recommendation. So the two proposed variances are to permit the cargo container and then increase the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures to 1,150 square feet. And that would include both the new garage and keeping the cargo container, which would be transformed to an accessory structure. So essentially, he's requesting an increase of 433.8 square feet over the maximum, which represents approximately 6.5% lot coverage dedicated to residential accessory structures. So this application pertains to 584-620 Beachville Road. The property is in the village of Beachville. There are residential uses to the east and the west of the property. The adjacent property actually to the west is zoned A2, so general agricultural. And it serves basically as a laneway and the access to the 26-acre parcel that's located behind the subject property, which you can see up on the map there. So immediately to its west is that laneway, which is used by the property owner for his equipment to access the agricultural property. The land uses across the road include open space and the active red land. The property is zoned residential type 1 zone or R1, and it's designated settlement in the township's land use plan as contained in the county's official plan. So like all applications, I circulated this to a number of departments and agencies. There were no questions or concerns from staff or the agencies with the proposal. Notice was provided to surrounding property owners on June the 2nd, 2025. We received 2 letters of support indicating that they had no issues with the proposed new structure and the proposed increase in lot coverage. We also received 2 letters of rejection. All of this communication is attached for the committee's information. More specifically, the letters of objection noted that they were rejected due to the noise and vibration, frequent vehicular movement on the site, the subject lands, the dust and odor coming from the subject lands, and that there are uses occurring that are not permitted in the items. In terms of the official plan, this proposal is consistent with the expected growth and regeneration in site. In terms of the and that's referring to the proposed increase in gross floor area for an accessory structure. In terms of the zoning bylaw, as the lot was created prior to the establishment of the bylaw, it does not meet the area and depth provisions, like many lots in the county of Oxford. So it's a non-conforming lot. So staff are satisfied that the lands can be considered legal non-complying, and this has been included in the recommended variance. And I did discuss this as well with Mr. Scott, and he is supportive of this approach. In terms of cargo containers, as we discussed with another application, they are not permitted in residential zones, which a lot of people are just not aware of. Consistent with that previous application, regarding that cargo container, as I mentioned, Mr. Scott is amenable to converting the cargo container to a residential accessory structure to the satisfaction of the CBO, which is the approach that was taken with the other, application, A08, A2508, so the Albright application. So staff are of the opinion that the proposed massing and location of the accessory residential structure in the rear yard will not negatively impact traffic on Beach Hill Road. Also, staff is of the opinion that the lot is large enough to maintain adequate drainage, maintenance of structures, access, and compatibility with adjacent uses. In terms of the objections, staff notes that the letters of objection did not express concern with the proposed increased gross floor area for residential accessory structures. So the letters of objection were focused on dust, noise, vibration, and odor, and the fact that there was a use that should not be occurring on our R1 property. The township's bylaw officer did conduct site visits and concluded that the uses are consistent with those uses permitted in the R1 zone. Planning staff would like to emphasize that the approval of the lot, increase the lot coverage would be for a detached structure accessory to the residential uses of the property only. Our approval of this variance does not sanction any land use beyond what is permitted in the R1 zone. Recommended relief, staff is of the opinion that the recommended relief for lot coverage for residential accessory structure provisions can be considered minor and desirable for the subject property, that the application would be considered for approval subject to the conditions in the report. So the conditions were to obtain a building permit to convert the cargo container to a residential structure. Mr. Scott is amenable to that, supports that, to confirm the location of the new proposed structure to the satisfaction of the chief building official. And that's to ensure that it is, it would not compromise the existing septic system, and it would maintain the appropriate variances, the appropriate setback from the lot lines. And another condition is that the existing garage is removed to the satisfaction of the chief building official. So that would ensure that prior to construction of the new building, the former garage, which Mr. Scott wishes to replace, is removed. So that concludes my presentation. I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks very much, Kate. Questions from council, or from committee, Councillor Pickard?
What are the R1 uses? I'm real surprised that this one met the criteria, so could you just go over that for me?
I can, if you can give me one moment, I can pull things up, and perhaps the CDO while I'm pulling that up. Assist as well. You pull it up. Thank you. And I apologize, I should have done.
No, it's just a little surprised that this one would qualify, given there was a landscaping business going on.
The so in terms of the permitted uses in R1, converted dwelling, a garden suite, a group home, a home occupation for public use, and a single detached dwelling. So as I mentioned, when we received the letters of objection, I did ask through Julie Middleton that the bylaw officer conduct some site visits. They did conduct site visits, and their conclusion was that everything met the criteria, the R1 set.
Any other questions? Any clarification? Seeing none, Mr. Scott, any comments you want to make?
Nothing.
You're in favor of the recommendation of the report?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing no one, it's back to council for comments and questions. Councilor Butcher, please.
It still bothers me that we keep getting all these application for variance. A lot of it's to do with the percent of lot coverage, we just increased it all. Is it not that when they come forward to the planning committee, they say, this is what you can do, and that's the end of it. Whereas we keep giving these variances or giving them approval, is it just gonna keep and then making people say, okay, I can get away with this, we'll just keep pushing the boundary. When are we gonna say no more? Are we gonna accept that? That's my comment.
Laurel, is there a comment?
Yeah, through you, Chair Mayberry, thank you for the question and comment. So part of our planning's analysis and review of all these applications, you're absolutely right. It does seem that, yes, we just increased it and we continue to get requests to increase items again. I think that's the nature of applications. Planning does provide vehicles by which people can slightly amend the zoning or do a complete zone change with majorly amends the zoning. I don't think that will stop, planning applications will stop, people asking to sort of change things. So zoning is it's meant to be a tool that reflects the reality of where we're going, but there has to be a balance between is it reasonable or not reasonable. So in this case, I did conduct a site visit and I looked at the size of the site, what it's surrounded by, and this is on the edge of what we would permit for an increased residential accessory structure. Any larger, and it would either be a zone change or staff would be recommending refusal. So there are a lot of things that we do consider when we get these. We could review the minor variance applications at the end of the year and see if our increase actually makes sense, or do we need to adjust it again. But in the end, it is up to the committee if they feel that these requests are too large for the properties. It is up to the committee to make that decision as well. So there's a number of things we could consider moving forward. But in this case, I was satisfied that the property could manage an increase of another 433 square feet with the demolition of the existing garage.
Any other questions or comments? Councilor Gillis.
Thanks. So question, Mr. Scott, obviously, to keep the container and then obviously have a building that's bigger than what we allow. So is this for personal use or for lawn care business? Like what is the objective of this bigger building?
For personal, I've got stuff sitting around outside of the building to be put inside. I don't store any lawn equipment, landscaping equipment on site for more than a day or two, and all the lawn cutting equipment is out in the trailer. So will be all for personal.
Any other questions or comments? To Councilor Bruckner, I certainly agree with you. It's council, or sorry, committee that actually says yes or no. So if you feel like you're getting pushed too far, then you're obvious to say no. In this particular case, the recommendation from planning was that it's a reasonable request, and so I'm probably more inclined to support it. So, do we have a motion? Moved by Yetmas, seconded by Thurston, and the motion to leave Councilor Yetmas.
That we approve the request.
Approval, with the conditions, planning report, right? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Appeal period? No. 20 days, so, Mr. Scott, there's a 20-day appeal period, and in that appeal period, you can appeal now. Anybody that is within the circulation area can appeal the decision. No, I thought it changed, so Laurel, tell us what the rule is.
Through you, Chair Mayberry and members of the committee. So there are no longer third-party appeals. So appeals are, the owner can appeal the decision. In this case, I don't think you're correct. The municipality, and other specified bodies, and I don't have the list right in front of me, but I can send clarification to staff and to the committee. But the important thing is there are no more third-party appeals, so people who were circulated, neighbors cannot, so.
So that was That was
That was a
why I
big
was
change.
checking, because it seems to me that the rule got changed.
Yes, it did.
Just so Mr. Scott's aware, council could appeal the decision they just made, which seems highly unlikely within 20 days.
Right.
Or you could appeal if in fact you didn't agree with our decision. Okay,
So the owner, the applicant, the agent, in this case, they were all the same
Yeah.
person. The municipality, I believe the county, you know, and other specified bodies, so First Nations. There are other, and I'll find that specific information.
so just so you're aware, we have to wait till the end of the 20-day appeal period is over. Then you can amend your building permit, but that doesn't stop you from coming in and working with the CBO to try and get a building permit that's aggressive, right? That sometimes takes time, so I would encourage you, whenever you're ready to come in for that building permit.
Perfect.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it for you, thanks very much. Next one is Nathan and Wendy Yeoman on Mill Line, come on up, folks. So you've seen the process, same thing, Laurel, and clarification, then you have your opportunity, so, okay, Laurel, please.
Thank you, Chairman Henry and members of the committee. So this is application for minor variance A 1125. The owners and applicants are Wendy and Nathan Yeoman. Thank you for attending today. So they're proposing relief from two provisions of the zoning bylaw to facilitate a new residential accessory structure, a new garage, and it would be located in the rear yard of the subject property. Their two requests are to increase the maximum permitted height from 5 meters or 16.4 feet to 6.1 meters or 20 feet. And to increase the maximum lot coverage for accessory structures from 1,076 square feet to 1,232 square feet. So that's an increase of 156 square feet over the maximum. So the applicant pertains to 354-480 Mill Line. The property is in the rural cluster of Centerville. Across from the property is Centerville Pond and the conservation area, which is technically the west. Residential uses are located to the north and south of the subject property, and agricultural uses are located to the east of the subject property. The property is zoned rural residential and designated rural cluster in the official plan. Through the circulation, there were no questions or concerns from staff or agencies with the proposal. Notice was provided to surrounding properties on July 7th, 2025. There were no comments, concerns, or questions received regarding the application. With respect to the official plan, this type of development is consistent with the expected growth in settlement areas. With respect to the zoning bylaw, I'd like to note that the property is significantly larger than surrounding residential properties. And staff is of the opinion it's of sufficient size to accommodate the proposed lot coverage and height for the new structure. The applicant also notes that the property is somewhat sloped, so the increase in height was to ensure that the new structure was fit properly with the slope of the property. The staff are of the opinion that the proposed massing and location will not negatively impact traffic or accessibility or visually on Mill Line. Furthermore, that the property can facilitate adequate drainage, maintenance, access, and compatibility with adjacent uses. So issues such as privacy and sightlines will also be maintained, specifically because the structure is being located in the rear yard. I'd also like to note that the applicants have spoken with their neighbors, and there have been no issues identified. The neighbors are actually supportive of this, which I'm sure the applicants can speak to. So staff are of the opinion that in this case, due to the size, location of the property, that the recommended relief from coverage and height can be considered minor and desirable for the development of the subject property. The proposal does maintain the intent of the official plan and zoning bylaw and can be given favorable consideration by committee. And I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Okay, any questions from committee for clarification? Seeing none, and then it's over to the Yeomans, any comments you want to make?
We just wanna build a shop just for extra storage, and we're wanna maintain things, make it look nice and neat. We wanna keep the street looking nice and neat, not having extra lawnmower sitting around or anything like that, so that's basically what it's for, so. Yeah. And we're happy to answer any questions.
We'll get to that in just a moment. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing done, it's back to council for questions. Any questions from council? Councilor Gillis.
No question, it's just a comment. I think this one's straightforward. It's actually a minor variance compared to some that we've seen before, and I'd be willing to approve.
Any other questions, Councilor Yarborough?
Or second the motion.
Good. Floor moved by Gillis, second by Yitma. Any other questions from committee? I got a couple, the actual use of the building, and then the other one is, will there be a driveway access to the building? Because the picture we have showed doesn't show a driveway access.
There is kind of a driveway on the side of the property beside our house, like, so we'll just.
It'll be a 20-foot extension to the garage.
Yeah.
Okay, so it'll be extended up to the.
Yeah.
garage.
It's just for storage, like my parents live 2 doors down, so we're just, our lawnmowers are parked over there. And so and we have 2 teenage boys coming, like they're 13 and 15, so. They'll probably have vehicles in the future, and so it's just mostly for that and to keep the property looking nice. So,
You did mention, shop,
yeah.
so either, business, commercial purpose.
No,
So personal use.
just,
Personal
yeah,
use,
like a garage shop, yeah.
Right, any other questions? Well, that was the reason I asked about the driveway, was mostly about ability for emergency services, i.e. fire trucks, to get up there if we need to. Any
Lots of.
any comment?
Through you, Mayor, no comment.
Okay, you're not worried about it, so, okay, thank you. Now we have a motion on the floor, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Same process as before, there's a 20-day appeal, as long as you don't appeal and we don't appeal, chances are there won't be any appeals.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
after 20 days, again, the 20 days from the property from coming in, seeing the CBO and asking what are the requirements of the building permit and getting working on that, but that's up to you folks. So,
Okay, thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
have a nice day. And the third one, is, Evan Probst. Hey. Oh, yeah, applicants are online. Okay, so Brianne, you're there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Oh, okay, there you're showing up, all right. Thanks, Brianne. I don't know if you've been paying attention, Brianne, but it's the same process as before. Planner does it, you, council has an opportunity to ask, any questions for clarification. Then you have an opportunity to make any comments you want. And then we go to the public to ask if there's any, those in favor or opposed, make any comments, all right? And then committee of adjustment will make a decision. So if you're ready, we're ready, and Laurel, please.
Thank you. This is application A1225, Kyle and Brian Gillespie. This is somewhat of a technical minor variance. So the applicant is proposing relief from 2 provisions of the zoning bylaw to facilitate a new commercial office building on the subject land, and it's to replace the existing office building. So they're basically relocating the office building to a different part of the site, and the current building would remain open until the new building is operational, and then the old building would be demolished. So the reason minor variance is required is technical. As I mentioned, the lot depth and lot area are more than 20% less than required in the bylaw. So if it's within that 20%, as planning, we can say, you know, you're allowed to proceed without a variance, but because the lot depth and area are more than 20% less than required, we do require a technical variance to recognize the existing condition, the existing situation. So again, this lot is technically undersized, because it was created before the bylaw, so it's a non-conforming lot. I'd like to note that the applicants are working with the building services department. They have submitted a site plan approval application. They're working closely with staff to ensure that the location of the new building meets all the setbacks and all the requirements of servicing on site and issues like that. The application, as I mentioned, is 332560 Plank Line is located in the rural cluster of Ostrander, which you can see up on the image on the screen. The property is zoned village zone, designated rural cluster. During the circulation, there were no concerns from staff or agencies with the proposal. The chief building official did note that permits are required, and that has been fairly communicated to the applicant. In terms of the public notice, it was provided to surrounding property owners on July 10th. There were no questions or comments or concerns received from the public. With respect to the official plan, the proposal is consistent with the expected growth in 7 areas. The official plan also states that site plan process will be used to address items like access, parking, signage, lighting, drainage, barrier-free design, and buffering from adjacent uses. So through the site plan process, these site compatibility issues will be addressed, and the applicant, as I mentioned, is working closely with township staff on this. I'd like to note the status of the opinion that the property is of sufficient size to accommodate the existing building, and the new building is slightly larger than the existing building, so staff has no concerns with proposed building. I'm of the opinion that the scale and location of the existing building doesn't negatively impact the functioning of the subject property or neighboring properties. Nor will the proposed building negatively impact the traffic access, surrounding properties, issues of privacy, maintenance, or the existing services on the site. So staff are of the opinion that the variances are reasonable and recommend support, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Laurel. Any questions, clarification from the committee? Seeing none, Brianna, it's up to you. Any comments you want to make?
No, Laurel explained that really well. Like I said, we have speech and language, private practice, and exactly, we're just, it's an old building that needs a lot of work. So just building new, and getting rid of the old. So use will stay the same, traffic will stay the same, etc. Yeah, just need a new home there. But Laurel explained all those pieces so well.
Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone want to speak opposed to the application? Good. Back to council comments. Any questions or comments from council? Council Booker.
Just one, Brianne, it's, I was just looking at your sketch and, the new one looks, smaller in footprint than the other one. Are you going 2 stories?
No, it's just the way the footprint, like the way the building is shaped, it's more like an L. But based on the map, they just have it as a rectangle. So the square footage is actually a little bit more with the new building. It's just based on, as you can see all the cutouts. But like I said, it's yeah, so the square footage is actually a little bit more, but we'll be doing a full basement, whereas it's just a concrete slab right now.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this? So, Brianna, you kind of half answered the question I was gonna ask. The current building is, I would say, kind of low to the surrounding topography. I always think it's, water's gonna run in at some point. So, and as you say, it was a former vet clinic at one time. And it's probably ready to be replaced, so.
Well, and it was
Okay.
like part of the general store and the garage, and it has like 4 additions. It's yes, we've given it the love we can, but we need something fresh for sure.
Okay, and this is for professional services, basically.
Correct.
Yeah. Any other questions from council or from committee? Seeing none, do we have a motion there? Moved by Bookman, seconded by Pickard, and the motion would be,
To approve the applicant.
okay, any discussion on the approval? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And is there an appeal period to this, Laurel?
There is the same appeal period.
20-day appeal period.
Correct, because of the planning application. However, they are working through the site plan approval process.
So they have to get the site plan done before they can get a building permit.
That is correct, yes.
Okay. Who can appeal this one? Because it's not residential.
Regardless of the proposed variance, it would be that because it's a minor craft planning application, it would be the same appeal. So it would be the applicant, the owner, the agent, the municipality, the same box.
Okay. Did you get that, Brianne? Okay. All right, so after 20 days, you're free to get a building permit, but you need to site plan done first. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Yep,
Have a nice day.
you too.
Need a motion to adjourn from the, moved by Wade, seconded by Buckner. Adjourn from the Committee of Adjustment and Defense Council. Any discussion? All those in favor, please. Opposed, that's carried. We have 5 minutes before we're recording vision, Marilyn. Yeah, you want to do report 16?
A report CAO 16/2025 is before council today. It's a follow-up to a management letter from the auditor in regards to Sweetburg Minor Hall and 2 of the unknown cemeteries that the municipality is the trustee for their care and maintenance funds. So the report itself just lays out some of the history in regards to the relationship. I'll start with Sweetburg Minor Hall. It was in or about 2016, when ball activity was resurgent in Sweetburg, that the municipality was approached to do the bookkeeping for the group. So as part of the accountability and transparency of the township handling funds, etc. The requirement was that it be included in our audit, part of our annual audit. Over the years, the township has increased its need for more detailed transactional backup for council committees. While Sweetburg Minor Ball is not a council committee, we actually do have similar requirements as far as the audit process is concerned. So looking at the question, should the Sweetburg Minor Ball become a committee of council, like all the others that we currently have? Council needs to be aware of the implications that would mean for the municipality, in that employer-employee relationship would be involved when it comes to all staffing, involved at the ball diamond, umpires, help in the canteen, anybody who's paid. That relationship would be in place. And so that would be something that would have to be considered by council before giving that further thought. But the Sweetburg Minor Ball has indicated that they are not interested in becoming a committee of council. So then the municipality needs to examine the time and effort that's going into the bookkeeper component and the audit process in relation to their financial activity. So the recommendation in the report is that the municipality look at giving back bookkeeping responsibilities to Sweetburg Minor Ball. So I'll put aside Sweetburg Minor Ball for now and move on to the trustee for Mount Elgin and Delmer cemeteries. So the municipality does not own those cemeteries. They are owned by a group of board or board. And in this instant, municipality's involvement is just those 2 cemeteries will send the municipality trust funds, which would be either care and maintenance fees they collect on purchasing grave purchases, niches, memorial stones, that type of thing, and invested on their behalf in the township's name, but with the affiliation with the cemetery board. And then every year, we usually do an investment for 5 years at a time. and then pay out their interest on an annual basis, so they use it for operational costs, et cetera, for the cemeteries. The interesting thing with cemeteries is there is a vulnerability on behalf of the municipality, as if for some reason the cemeteries are abandoned, they could very well become a township responsibility. So I did include in the report section of the Funeral, Burial and Cremation Services Act from 2002, which stipulates that when an application is made to declare a cemetery abandoned, so that declaration or the request can come forward if there's no longer enough funds to maintain the cemetery, and the trust and the board wants to say, okay, that's it, we can't do anything further, or if the owner operator of that facility can no longer be found. So you'll have some times where there'll be a graveyard developed for a specific purpose, i.e. maybe a church, a local standalone church, that type of thing. And then maybe it was 180 years ago or whatever, and then there's no longer anyone that can take care of it. So the municipality will end up with it. So it says specifically in the act that even when that's being considered, that the municipality will be responsible for the maintenance of the cemetery until the final application is disposed of. So we could end up picking up costs for maintenance, et cetera, even if we don't possess ownership of the said cemetery. So there's a lot of information here. The bottom line is that while I think the Speedberg Minor Ball one is straightforward, as far as councils are in agreement with it, and being always respectful of the amount of work the volunteers do for that group and the development that's happened within that area, which has been phenomenal for use by the public, that it may be time to look at severing that bookkeeping responsibility, but holding off for the time being on the trustee, being the trustee for the funds of the two cemeteries, pending further discussion. So we just need to look at that in a little deeper. So that's the report before council today.
Okay, so, you have a court revision 945. We'll leave that on hold, and now ask the court revision to take over. Council Wade, you're the chair.
I am.
Kelly,
Counselor Spencer, would you like to sit at the table?
Sure.
Okay, this is a quota revision for the Catellus Municipal Drain Section 76 report. The members are myself, Councilor Paul Bugner, and Councilor Kelly Spencer, who is representing the town of Tilsonburg, as part of this drain goes through the municipality of Tilsonburg, so that's why Kelly is here today. The first thing would be to approve the agenda as it is written. Have a mover for that, Paul, have a seconder for that, Kelly? Any further discussion? None, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Okay, there has been no appeals received by the clerk at this time. So what would the recommendation of the quarter revision be? To approve the drain report as is written? Or
somebody here wants to,
what's that?
anybody in the public?
Well, I was gonna ask them after
Okay.
that. Approved, a move by Paul, seconded by Kelly. All. Okay.
Yes, sir. David.
Is anyone in the public against the approval of this agenda? Does anyone in the public want to speak in favor of this? No comments, so we'll put it to a vote. All in favor of quarter revision? Approved, vote, carried. Adjournment, someone move to adjourn the quarter revision. Your turn. Moved by Kelly, second by Paul, all in favor? Carried, that's the end of quarter revision for the Catellus Municipal.
Thanks very much for your time, Kelly, appreciate it. Not every court decision goes out smoothly, but. Good job, Kelly, good job. Oh, okay. Danny says we need a motion to go into the court division, so moved by Gillis, or sorry, moved by Governor, seconded by Gillis, to go into the court of division and that comes away and the appointed. Appointed? Yep. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. All right, now, I thought we did that. You want a motion to reconvene the council? Okay, we need a motion in the council, moved by Way, second by Yetman. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. All right, we're back down to Mary Ellen's report on the cemetery and the minor. Go ahead. You're finished. Any questions on this report? Councilor, Gillis, please.
Not a question per se, I think that staff summarized it pretty good, and I think that I would be willing to move forward with the recommendation.
Okay, and the recommendation is that we discontinue bookkeeping for Sugar Minor Hall. And that we act as a trustee for the two independent cemeteries. We don't have to.
We don't want to say continue, we're already trustees.
Oh. Sorry, they're in back. So, all right, and any discussion by council? Councilor.
It's just that, with the cemeteries, I can understand that it could be in the future that yes, we'll have to take over because it's finding it hard to find people to take care of it. Especially the Delmer one, I think he's down to about 2 people. So it's getting very hard.
And go ahead.
We should have an effective date as far as the bookkeeping services are concerned. Brooke, did you have any thoughts on that? End of 2024 or 2025?
Haven't done anything to this point for them. They only come in at audit time, so we have done nothing in front of them for Sugar.
Okay, so as of the end of 2024,
Number secondary.
so okay.
Okay. Any further discussion on the motion? I guess I would ask the question, should we in fact send a letter to both Mount Elgin and Delmer Cemetery and ask them if they would be interested in the township taking ownership, but the cemetery boards be appointed by the township? I'm asking not, suggesting make a motion that way. I think though that might be one of the ways to bring them on to the ownership by the township and therefore under our, county and responsibility. You're already responsible.
But from a financial perspective, trust funds.
Yeah.
We want to be responsible for everything
So we wouldn't have to.
that is owned. We would be responsible
Okay.
by default.
All right.
Yeah, but it's,
Fair enough.
we can certainly do that if that's council's wish, but.
No, I'm just trying to think of a way of getting us past the legal hurdle of being responsible for the care and maintenance fund contributions that we have no control of. That's what I'm saying, so.
We could ask them, to produce financial statement, or something last week, so they do something, but that, there is no authority to it, so based on our current relationships.
Right. That's, I recognize that they're fully independent and happy about them, except that we take on a legal responsibility for the parent maintenance fund. And well, I didn't found out that they didn't, not are we responsible for that. So there is rules on the Cemetery Act that says that X percent, I think it's 40% of laws and.
Yeah, there's a minimum requirement too, yeah, so, the EOA, they file those two reports independently every year. They get the interest, information from us when they're filing that. So. I don't know, Brooke, did you have anything to offer in that regard? The BOA has reached out to us before for information regarding,
Just the fund sitting in there.
the funds sitting in care maintenance. There has been sometimes backup or requests that come directly from BOA, we manage all of it, to provide financial information that we have, and we do. So. But there is, as beyond your looking laid out, there is still risk because they don't have the same controls in place.
So hence, that's my concern. We don't have anyone that sits on either Delmar or Mile from some board on council. No. You would ask the question discreetly, okay, we'll leave it at that. There's a recommendation here, you, Councillor Wade.
I hate to put him on the spot, but we do have a member of the public that is on the Delmar board. I'm not sure how big the committee is. Could you just give us an update how many people are on the boards for our information? It's David Way, he's the,
There's roughly 6 on the board. The board is active. We had a meeting 3 weeks ago. The financial reports are there. They haven't, or they're being audited every year. There are funds there to sustain the cemetery in the manner it's being sustained now, for, let's just say, a fairly long period of time. The reports do go out, like, Jim Smith is the one that does all that side of it. You're right, Paul, it is a big job, it is taxing. So it's hard to find younger people to get involved with it and, keep the committee there. But we're working on, trying to work towards that, to find new members and try to upgrade all the time. But yes, there is funds there. We do deal with the upper levels and send the reports out if they require and keep on top of all that stuff. For both the old cemetery and the new cemetery.
All right, thank you. More of the question of, would they be interested rather than do we actually want to do the job, so. There is a recommendation here from move and second, any further discussion on the recommendations or the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. We've got 2 minutes before the next thing, so you want to do the municipal growth vote? So, yeah. Oh. Is he coming back? Just general Bible, wait, go ahead and do the, municipal building update.
A report CAO 18/2025 is before council today to provide an update on the proposed new municipal building. Other information, there's background information provided in the report, as well as, which includes, the minutes from different meetings, et cetera. What has come forward for under discussion items. As a result of a meeting, with SPH Engineering and, the architect, for preliminary designs. We're now, the group or SPH will be bringing forward a draft design. To present a new rendering to council at the regular council meeting. Second. It's a 2 going from a 3 to a 2-story model. Changing the location of the library. And council chamber, so on the main floor would potentially be the daycare and a new library. Then going up would be the municipal office and council chamber, so it's making the building bigger. So location on the property is also being looked at. The preliminary design shifted it too close to Mount Elgin Road, which would restrict parking at the front of the building. Concern, especially around a library and that type of thing, having adequate parking. So anyway, this whole thing, will be coming back to council. At the September 2nd meeting, and the engineering firm, the architect has requested. Approximately 40 minutes, to review the design of the council, so that will be coming forward, so it's just to bring council up to date on where we're sitting with them.
Councillor Patrick.
Will they be bringing a estimate on price? I know we had a price for 3 stories.
Yeah, based on the fact that we're looking at having an emergency. Room, instead of the whole building being built to disaster level. Requirements, if that's your whole building would be disaster, or for disaster situation. We're looking at having a basement area, below the building. That would be built for that very purpose, so they'll have storage and that type of thing. So that would potentially reduce the cost of the overall structure. Because you're not having to build that much extra protection into the whole build. But we will ask that question at the meeting. The figure that's been used so far is based on an industry standard. So we'll try to drill down a little bit more on that, but hopefully changing it from 3 to 2 stories. Change things up a little bit will help with the overall price.
Any other questions on this? Just more for information, anything? Just one comment, it says that I suggested the regional hub. I think the library board considers it a regional library.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
So that the word hub is, it's more regional. To the library board, that's a certain size rather than a certain purpose.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything further on this? The motion to accept this information. Moved by Pickard, seconded by Hitman, resolve the council receive sub CAO 18/2025 information and further discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Bylaw enforcement, CO 46, Benny.
How much I have for reports?
Questions on it? Any questions on this report? Not seeing any. They're moving and seconded to receive this information. Moved by Ways, seconded by Thurston, Council Thomas Subcommittee, see for the CL 47/2025 bylaw enforcement activity report, second report 2025 with information in discussion. None, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. CL 47/2025 wind energy processing fairness considerations. Benny, is that yours? Okay.
Briefly, that's what you want. Again, not much to add, the information from the report. Berwin was just wanting to speak to council, they don't feel that they received the opportunity here.
Can you speak up, please?
Berwin was just looking, has just advised staff that they didn't feel that they were given the opportunity to present their case at the June meeting. So that's just, this information coming forward to council. Berwin will be attending September 2nd meeting to make a presentation in front of the public. So this is just providing council with basic information as to what's forthcoming through September.
Any questions from council on this? Councilor Beggars.
Yeah, I wanted this on the agenda. I'm a little concerned to say the least, but you know, we did move that we were an unwilling host. 159th municipality to do so. So I'm a little concerned what the purpose of them coming to council is. And the comment in here that we have to be committed to providing an accurate, unbiased, and be open, transparent. So I am not I have no expertise in wind power. I don't think I would be a good one to argue pros and cons of wind power. I know Julie provided a report, I think it was June 3rd, a very good report. That was unbiased, I thought it was very fair. So I don't know what is expected of council. I'd like some clarification. Are we expected to look at an application or a request for approval of the project? Is that what's coming September 2nd? Or is this just a rebuttal of what they heard June 17th? Any information would be appreciated.
Okay, so the request comes based on the fact that the township did not follow its procedural bylaw in relation to the motion being made while the delegation was presenting. And based on our procedural bylaw, the motion is not to happen until after the presentation is complete. So Pro Wind is saying that there was information presented at that meeting that they did not have an opportunity to rebut or to speak about. So what they're saying is they were not given the same opportunity as public was in relation to the presentation. So for the openness and fairness and transparency, they're saying that they should be have given that opportunity. So they have booked into the September meeting to present information in a public venue in regards to the wind turbine project that they are looking at. If they bring, I think the council resolution was very clear in that it was not willing to consider the application, but was not at the danger of disallowing them the opportunity to rebut or present information on the other side of the argument.
So I'm gonna stop it there because we do have a 10:05 appointment and it is 10:05. We'll come back to this in a few minutes. Apologize for that. Rest for a bylaw extension request, animal care and control. First report, CL 45/2025. So that's on the agenda. Go ahead.
Sounds good, Mayor. Again, not much to add, all the information is in the reports. Staff are recommending that the request be denied, due to the reasons specified. Question?
Okay, so on this report, request to keep chickens and mini donkey and mini pony. Any questions or comments from council? See the recommendation right now. No questions or comments? Councilor Trigger.
I support the recommendation from staff. You know, that's how everyone else is treated from Southwest Oxford. This shouldn't be any different.
Dave? Second. So moved by Trigger, seconded by Gillis. Result, Council Dungeon subject property received Port CL 45/2025 bylaw extension requesting animal care and control bylaw chickens for mini pony and mini donkey. Dean Scott with information for the council denied the bylaw exemption request submitted by Dean Scott. Keep chickens and mini pony and mini donkey on the property at 584/620 Eastville Road as a proposal does not provide the conditions set by council for such exemptions. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's great. Mary Ellen, back to your report then, because we've got 15 minutes.
Okay, so I think Laura had
Go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, through you, Mayor Mayberry, members of council. Just to point out that, the unwilling host resolution does not preclude, people applying for a municipal support resolution or applying for a planning application for a renewable energy project.
Any other comments, Mary Ellen?
Nope.
Okay, so my understanding of this is that, and to agree with Laura, the application that should come forward, that might come forward, I don't know, on the first meeting in September would be the official request, which council has already indicated their position on. But They actually have to make the request and council then have to actually respond to it. That's as simple as that. And in that request, they have the opportunity to provide all the information that they want to provide. Then council has an opportunity to respond, and they can respond by supporting, denying, or deferring till they get further information. So, the Councilor Pickett's comment, I don't think any of us feel like we're actual wind experts, we all have our own opinions. But at that point, staff or council may in fact tell staff, go away and bring back information on A, B, or C, or they may say, no, we're satisfied with the information and make a decision. That's my understanding of the process forward.
So could you decline it at that point?
You could accept, reject, or defer. And it's, excuse me, no discussion,
Can we ask
sit
some,
down,
can we have some minor, just minor room for comments? I mean, we just love for comments on all variations. This is a big issue for the county. Can we just have some minor,
yeah.
I'm not asking for a lot of room or a lot of.
Well, sit down for a second, let me ask council, then we'll,
Ask for
does
your-
council want to hear comments from the public on this?
As long as it was very short.
What's the wish of council?
Brief.
Brief.
Okay,
Yes.
Bob, make
Yes.
brief comment.
Thank you very much for the, I'll be very brief and I'm not here to be argumentative or anything else. People, council received my email last night. And I think that council did an outstanding job. And I know that all of you, fully engaged, whatever your position was at the start of this process, but the process has gone on over a year. With the company themselves saying that they had 5 different interactions with council to suggest that a 10-minute presentation was the be all end all of a discussion and debate, I think is not appropriate. I think the process was followed. It's followed to the letter. The mayor was very clear when you opened the meeting that there were no comments from the public. That the delegations can't question each other. We had several questions as they were giving their presentation. I wrote down questions I would have. But we didn't ask them. That's not the process. So I'm just saying to the council is that follow your process. You don't need to let someone reinvent it. It's there. And the only other comment I'll make is that the unwilling host designation can't be meaningless. Why would you entertain someone coming to make a presentation on us hosting, us as a municipality? When it's clear there's an unwilling host designation. I think step 1 is someone needs to undo that, but that's only my comments. I do appreciate, again, everyone's input on this and your opinion, but you know, it's quite likely that your opinions were gained over a year of time and that 10-minute presentation on either side didn't need to be looked at as the be all end all. I'll just leave it at that. Okay, if anybody has any questions, the be all answer.
Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I'm becoming very uncomfortable with this conversation at this point. If it's going to continue, I need to leave the room.
I would suggest you might want to leave the room. So, Bob, I want to explain, and I'm trying to be very fair of it. The comment I made at the June 17th meeting is that there's no discussion or there's no question from the public and delegation has to only do with delegation. It has nothing to do with the rest of the process. So, the rest of the process, and I've explained this numerous times to people, the unwilling host means absolutely nothing to the IESO. They don't care about that. What they care about is one thing, and I've said this to you and to other people, the only thing they care about is, do you get a municipal consent support resolution? That's the only thing they care about, and then the applicant can move forward. If they don't get it, the thing is done, right? And that's as simple as, but they actually have to ask for it before you can say yes or no. Saying a generic yes or no doesn't actually count in the process because the opponent actually has to ask for it. Tried to explain that before, that's the way it is. And so therefore, they have every right to come to council and ask and make a presentation as to why they should.
Respectfully, we've been declared unwilling host, and I think that should be their answer.
Or not.
No, I'm not counsel, you're entitled to.
Yeah, no, I think this is something though that
Yeah.
And quite frankly, we didn't follow the process. So I would suggest that we proceed and follow the process and get it behind us one way or another.
But Mayor, the process, a motion can be made at any time during any discussion from council. When the meeting, the delegations were both heard and when council was recognized, the motion was received and accepted. And we went a long way, but we went a long way even after the motion was received and accepted to answer a lot of questions that council had for us. No one stopped the debate. There was a free and you know, we were put some hard questions to us and we answered them all.
And that was incorrect and that was my fault. No question, I take full responsibility for that. I should not have allowed a motion to be made until the delegation was complete.
I disagree. I think the
No,
motion was legal.
disagree.
What shouldn't have been allowed is the discussion to continue. But the
Yes.
motion was legal.
Oh,
I disagree with you.
well, unfortunately, you don't get to choose.
No,
and
I'm not. So I appreciate the opportunity.
No, that's a case of the delegation was not complete until it's basically dismissed. We sort of said, thank you very much, have a nice day, right? And so it wasn't complete because not everybody had asked the questions, primarily me, I expect. So one,
That's me.
Wendell, you wanted to comment before we do, is it all right for Wendell to comment from council? Okay, Wendell, please.
Yeah, I just want to lay some clarification on the perceived process. Yeah, I think earlier on I sent a document from the AMO, which is a toolkit for municipalities to use when you're deciding on energy projects that you want to entertain. And it's quite clear, conversely, and I'm quoting right from the document, conversely, where municipalities are not willing hosts for certain types of electrical projects, the pre-engagement offers the first opportunity to indicate to the developer that a project is unlikely to be approved. So that's pre-engagement, that's even the very start of it. And so what happened in July was fully within the bounds of AMO's toolkit for municipal decision making. They don't, just because one process and it states this, just because it passes one part of the procedure, doesn't mean it's successfully going to complete the remainder. It clearly states that a council can shut it down, can say no at any time. From the very onset of the application, we were interested in doing this. The AMO says, in fact, it even stated that many municipalities prior to this have already stated in their bylaws that they are unwilling to host for certain types of projects. So that even would tell a developer, you know, you can come to us, but we already have determined that we're not interested. So I believe that, you know, not confused by the report by the staff why there was a misprocedure, because as I've read this AMO document, I'm not an expert, but I do am able to understand contracts and documents, and it clearly states that a council doesn't have to go through the whole process. They can make the determination at any point from pre-engagement to just prior to the approving the MSR. Once that's approved, you can't turn it down. Once the council approves that MSR, it's a locked in deal.
No.
That's what they state. It's in the.
That's totally true.
Read the document. And this is.
Well, I read the document, so I've read the document, well, Laurel or Mary Ellen, if you want to aware. Laurel, go ahead.
Thank you through you, Mayor Mayberry, members of the council, members of the audience. So the purpose of a municipal support resolution is to provide the applicant, agent, proponent to apply for a contract. So they may not be successful in getting a contract. So the MSR does not mean that anything is approved. So if they got support for an MSR, they would apply for a contract from the IESO. If they got a contract, so here's two ifs. They would then have to submit a planning application. Part of that planning application includes a number of items required for a complete application, and I'll just list a number of the studies that we have thought might be required. So a full agricultural impact assessment, all three components. No, yeah, that's true. Noise study, environmental impact study, planning justification report, archaeological heritage study, geotechnical and hydrogeological studies, functional servicing report, source water protection screening, scan for petroleum well, draft zoning bylaw. Pardon?
I said, keep it simple, stupid. Make it more complicated.
These are the requirements for complex planning applications such as subdivisions, industrial uses. So as planners, we are required to ask people to justify and support what they want to do on land. So we require a number of studies, background studies, information, data to provide us with information as staff, as planning staff, and then we would circulate an application to various departments, to agencies for comment. So there's an entire process that would provide more information. So a municipal support resolution, all it does is it allows the applicant or proponent to apply for a contract. So there's still a ton left in the process. Yes, that is true, actually.
There's
Well,
another.
wait a minute, there's this in the public meeting, so.
So I'm just
We're
going
gonna
to
stop.
explain the process
I
and
can have to stop this right now,
Yep.
because you do have a 10:20 appointment. Is David Pye here?
We might need a lawyer, might have to.
He's not here.
I think we
He is not here.
He's not here, okay, so we still have a response, and Shane, do you wanna address this?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to council, I can address this now or through the report, it's whatever. Are we on my report now? I can.
Okay, you wanna do it with the report?
Yeah, I'll do it with my
Okay.
report, since he's not here. Yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, so sorry for that interruption. Wendell, you were still up somewhere, I don't know where you were. I apologize for that, I do try and follow the rules here a little bit. So, this was supposed to be brief, I'm just going on from here. Council's direction here. But, Marion, do you wanted to comment? Okay. So, decision of council, anything further, Wendell?
No, I just, the troubling thing for myself and I believe the community is that it seems like the proponents' request for September is to try to alter the decision that was made on the basis that they didn't have opportunity to rebut, which isn't part of the delegate process. I might be wrong, but I thought when the delegate presents that if there's an opposing delegate, they don't have the opportunity to question the other delegate. And so for them to claim that they didn't have fair opportunity, they're asking to go outside the bounds of I believe, that the delegate process. So if that's the case, then the request for September 12th is unjustified. Because my understanding is you can't, and one delegate can't question another delegate's presentation, it's up to council to ask the questions at that point. So I just find that they're illegitimate in their request. And their claim that process wasn't followed, document states that even at the pre-engagement, it can be turned down by council. And so council isn't obligated to essentially listen to the whole presentation, which they actually gave 3 presentations prior to July. In their proposal, what they were started out with a 200 megawatt project and they scaled it down to 36 megawatt project to gain approval. And so they had all those meetings. So for the proponent to declare that they didn't have opportunity, I think is a little bit disingenuous. And I think it is disrespectful of the community's effort to try to make their voice clear to council that this community is not in favor of the wind project in a post-residential and on-prime farmland. And that was essentially the whole premise of the community's opposition. But I just find that the proponent wanting to meet on September's, I believe that their reasons are disingenuous and they're self-serving by the journalists and they're asking something that I didn't think was permitted under a delegate presentation. I might be wrong, and I can be correct.
So I would argue, or not argue, but I would suggest that everybody has the right to bring a delegation forward on a subject.
Mhm.
As does the community, immediately following the delegation by, ProLink, if they in fact come on in September, I think it's September 2nd day. Right, so all you have to do is ask the clerk for delegation status to report or to comment. It's not directly to the other delegates, but it's in response to whatever you heard.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding what they're asking, because from what I understood from their letter, what their staff report is that the proponent is saying they didn't have opportunity to question our delegate's presentation at that meeting, and they felt that was inappropriate, which that request of theirs is inappropriate.
I think what they had said, my understanding was they said, we didn't have an opportunity to correct what they thought was misinformation. And so. If they want to do that on September 2nd, they're welcome to. And then you would have, or someone would have the opportunity to debate that or to delegate. There's not going to be delegation to delegation debate.
Right.
If you talk to council, council can ask questions, but that's as far as it's going to go. So. Bob, you had your chance.
One, I appreciate it, 30 seconds. Please, please.
Go, just good enough. Go.
Council. Yes or no?
30 seconds. Number one is Pro-Wind is not the trier of fact and the judgment of what's true or false. None of these things are very subjective. A lot of these things in these processes. The other thing is that there's an unwilling host designation. Pro-Wind himself, and I listened to the meetings last night and I watched the videos, said during meetings, their first step has to be a willing host, in their own words. So please review that.
So.
Thank you for your indulgence. I thank you very much.
Justin, I think you're confusing, and are they, the idea that a willing host is a municipal consent? Those are two, the words tend to get merged into one. But in fact, council doesn't give a care about willing host. When it makes a final decision on an application, its only concern is, will the municipality give municipal consent for the proponent to go forward?
Willing host can't be meaningless, Mayor.
They know what people do you want to piss off in the township?
They know that.
I think that's the end of this.
Well, you made the same decision on September 2nd, after hearing that designation. You've already agreed we're unwilling
My
host.
suggestion,
What's going to happen to change that?
I don't know, ask council.
they know, let them
Okay,
tell.
well, you wrote the thing.
I think we've probably gone as far as we're going in this,
Say no and let them challenge it. Say no and let them challenge it.
but you'll have the same opportunity to re-challenge. I suspect that council
Let them
will
do it.
defer. My guess is that they would defer and
Let
let
them
them
lawyer up.
information.
Let them lawyer up from Germany.
So,
Can I say, I have 30 seconds? I've been very.
Sure, go ahead.
Very quiet. It's not my usual thing, so I'm not a politician. I'm not a counselor. I don't know the rules. I don't know the ins and outs. But I am a mother, and I feel like I'm back when my kids were like 2 years old and standing at the checkout. Can I have a candy? Can I have a candy? No. Can I have a candy anyway? No. How many times do we have to go through the discussion? And I understand what the mayor is saying. Unwilling host does not preclude them from asking for the municipal support resolution. However, I feel like I'm dealing with a toddler. We were very clear, council was clear in their unwilling host declaration and said, listen, we're not interested. But just like a toddler, Pro-Wind is here again and, get all these people riled up again. And like, we all have real lives to live. And I'm sure you have, other people you want to listen to rather than us. And so it's like, why are you even bothering? Like, and I don't know, you can't answer this because this is for them to answer. There's nobody here from them, but I literally feel like I'm dealing with a toddler. And all I ask is that everybody that took a vote on June 17th will take the same vote with the same outcome when they finally do come and ask, can I please have that candy? Anyway, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
So the reason that they come is because that's part of the process set out by the province.
Sorry,
The discussion,
not coming.
we don't get to decide whether the province is right or wrong. We get to live with the process. And so the process says they can come and ask. And when they come and ask, to your point, council will have to make a decision. Yes, no, or we need more information.
More information.
Go ahead, let everybody else. This is the last one, so make it really good.
If you just take pictures, you talk about the process, I just asked you all to go to the drive, look at the final product, go along Lake Huron, go to Purple, and look at them. And they're gonna be in your backyard, they're gonna be in your grandkids' backyard. Like, forget the money, the politics. What is the final product? Is this what you want? Is this your like to see? I went for a drive from your Lake Huron and I went for miles. just windmills everywhere, and they weren't attractive, and I can't imagine looking out the doors there. So you really need to just look at those.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, we do have a report here, Mary Ellen, any further comments on this? Or was it Denny, sorry? We're receiving his information. CL 47, we have a motion to receive his information. Moved by Pickard, second by Gillis. Any further discussion from council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Just so you know, the September 2nd meeting will be at Mount Elgin Community Center. So we're anticipating a fairly large crowd. So, have a nice day, folks. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. Just gotta get us back to where we are.
Thank you all for your indulgence. Thank you very much.
No problem. 10:40. Not quite there.
Go ahead. Yeah, or should be, yeah, goes, because I got me, I mean, did you make it? Well, I did, I got it. It's been told us.
Oh, okay, then. Sit here. All right. All right, we're at 10:30. It's time for public meeting for zone change. We have a motion to go into a public meeting. And just saying, you know, God, motion to go into a public meeting, moved by Patrick, seconded by Thurston. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And sorry, I lost the,
They're coming. Trying to get in the door.
Thank you.
this is the, Tech NPS. And. somewhere along there. Okay. We're now into a public meeting. We've got started with that, if you don't mind. We're at the point where I'm explaining the process and then, we'll go on with the meeting, or get on with the discussion. So the process is that, the process is that the, planner does the report.
We're gonna ask Pete to come back.
Sorry. Thanks, Peter, forgot about that.
I'm not sure if they're gonna yell at me yet, so.
Okay. So, sorry about that. The process is that the planner does the report. Then council has an opportunity to ask any questions for clarification. Then as any applicant, you can make any comments you want in favor or opposed or regarding the report. And then after that, we'll open it up and anyone in the public can speak in favor or oppose. Okay, so, and then council or go out of committee, or sorry, go out of the zone change public meeting and council will actually make the decision then. And you'll know by 5 minutes after we're down here, so.
Sure.
Okay. If you have any questions on the way, don't be afraid to ask. So go ahead, Laura, please.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Mark and Kyle, members of the audience. So this application pertains to 292171 Cloden Line in the village of Brownsville. The properties is surrounded by agriculture to the north, west and south, single detached residential and institutional uses to the north, and industrial uses to the east and southeast. So the applicant and owner, so thank you, Mark and Paul, for being here, applied for a site-specific amendment to permit a residential accessory unit on the part of the subject land zone general industrial. So that part of the subject lands is approximately 1.02 acres or hectares or 2.53 acres with frontage on Culloden line. The other part of the property is zone A2. It's just a strip of the property on the south of the property. So this application only pertains to the part zoned general industrial. So the property is designated settlement in the township's land use plan and zone general industrial in the township's bylaw. The industrial zone permits a range of uses. As I highlighted in the report, it does not permit an accessory dwelling unit, so an additional accessory dwelling unit. The provincial planning statement does support economic development and competitiveness on properties, providing that a mix and range of uses can occur on site. So the provincial planning statement does support intensification, mixed use and compact development and use of existing infrastructure, existing facilities. The official plan establishes that rural settlements are the focus of growth and regeneration, and like the PPS, does support a mix of uses that utilize existing infrastructure and resources. With respect to industrial uses, the official plan also sets out locational criteria for uses, and that site plan control will be required, which I've spoken to the applicant about. And we have set up a meeting for Thursday to talk about the preliminary site plan. So the site plan review would look at issues like separation and buffering from adjacent residential uses, access to a road, compatibility, servicing, parking, loading, placement of buildings, and other issues. So through the site plan, they will meet with staff, county and planning staff will identify issues for further follow-up. And we'll discuss issues of landscaping, storage, loading, traffic, as I mentioned, access, barrier-free design, drainage. We will also discuss how the servicing on the site is at whether or not it's adequate for the proposed and existing uses. The applicant has done a preliminary design for septic services to service the new building and make sure it can accommodate the new building as well as the existing building, and that will be assessed through the site plan review process as well. So in general, planning is of the opinion that site-specific approval to permit a dwelling unit as accessory to proposed industrial use may be appropriate where the dwelling is occupied, the owner, caretaker, or person employed on the lot, and where the proposed industrial use is compatible with the dwelling. So at this point, the applicant, well, the owner, Kyle Burton, has indicated that he will be the resident of the proposed residential accessory residential use, and the accessory residential use would be accessory. It's a lot of accessories to the warehouse use proposed for the new building. So the new building will consist of the residential use, so the home, warehouse use, and a drive-in bay that would basically be used for washing the odd truck. So staff is of the opinion that in this instance, the accessory dwelling can be considered compatible with those uses. If the new building was having manufacturing, for instance, and there was proposed residential use beside manufacturing, to me, that would not be a compatible use. But given that it's, dry industrial, so warehouse and washing trucks, we can consider those as compatible. So overall, staff are of the opinion that the application is consistent with the policies of provincial planning statement and official plan. So with respect to mix of uses, compatibility, compact uses, using existing infrastructure. However, we're recommending deferral pending approval of the proposed site plan to ensure that the location of the proposed building is consistent with the provisions of the zoning bylaw and does address issues of compatibility with surrounding uses. And we want to make sure that the proposed services can accommodate those uses in the new building as well. So the existing building, the owners indicated that they will maintain that building. It's currently a small area of manufacturing, and the rest is truck repair. As I mentioned, the proposed building is a residential unit, warehouse, and drive-in bay. And the applicant will be occupying the residential unit. So the highway commercial zone does permit an accessory residential unit with the other uses permitted in the highway commercial zone. So I took a look at that zone to see if we could consider allowing a residential use with other uses as well. This is an industrial zone. However, we could structure the bylaw so that the residential accessory use was limited to the building with certain other uses to ensure that there's long-term compatibility moving forward. So that in that proposed building, that all of a sudden we didn't end up with a manufacturing use beside a residential use. So in conclusion, staff is recommending deferral to provide the applicant and owner time to go through the site plan process, which is required as part of this application. We have, as I mentioned, we have a meeting set up on Thursday to discuss the draft site plan and discuss any variances that may be required with the placement of the proposed building. And that, at this point, concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer questions at this point.
Okay, questions, clarification, Councillor Buckner?
Laurel, hypothetically, if, we approve this, the residential dwelling in the building. Down the road, if it was sold, would that be grandfathered into the next owner? Or would it have to be removed?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for your question. So the zoning bylaw would be very specific in what is allowed on that site. So it would continue to permit a residential unit in that building as long as it's accessory to this much square footage of warehouse use, this much, et cetera, et cetera. So it would apply to that property until somebody applied to change that zone. So it'd be a site-specific zone for that property.
Councillor Gill?
Question for the planner, just wanna make sure I'm reading straight, for the size of accessory dwelling unit, it seems quite large. I know the whole building is quite large, but it seems, you know, a third of the building for accessory is, planning staff okay with that, or?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, thank you for the question. So the term accessory refers to that it's accessory to another use. It is not accessory as in an additional residential unit. So it's an accessory to another use. I can ask the owner and the agent to speak to why they are interested in a residential unit of that size. My concern or the issues that planning would look at is the compatibility of residential with other uses on the site and how that interacts with the uses surrounding the site. Thank you.
Any other questions? So I have a question very much related to what Councillor Gillis just asked. If we allow this and it gets built, and you have 4,133 square feet of residential, could I in fact then make an additional residential unit inside that 4,133 and have another unit for, say, one of my children, whatever?
Thank you for the question, Mayor Mayberry. ARUs are not permitted on industrial zoned,
ARUs are not permitted.
correct, on sites with industrials.
At all.
Correct.
There's no opportunity for an apartment or some other form of residential, like splitting a 4,100 square feet in half or anything like that.
The way the zoning, thank you for the question, the way the zoning would be written is that it's a single residential.
Yeah, okay. No, I just wanted to be
Yes.
clear because.
Yeah, it would be written as a single residential unit. ARUs are not permitted on sites with industrial zoning.
So I had the same thought, or the same thought of Councillor Gillis, at what point this, could you have a couple of units? You got kids, we gotta put them somewhere. So, anyways, any further questions for clarification from the council? Seeing none, then up to the applicants, Mark or Kyle, any comments you wanna make?
Yeah, just to address the one councilor's concern, so to speak, with regards to the square footage and the size, they actually, a certain area on how it's shaped is an L shape. And I put some doors in there to kind of close off the living space, and I think the general footprint includes kind of like an interior garage kind of like sort of design. And with what we do as a business, we do high-end trucks, we do class accessories, stainless steel accessories for trucks. And what we need is a clean space to be able to back a truck in, take pictures of our product. And at some point, it'll stay a maintained clean garage space for the most part, and that's why it becomes quite so large, that living space. Is so we can, you know, back a full-size Class 8 truck into that facility, into that side of the shop, and just take a picture, pull it out, it's clean. And that kind of gives you some context as to, you know, why it's, you know, it's kind of a hybrid use, so to speak. I'll live in one corner of the property, but it'll also be a personal area for my stuff, a garage space, so to speak, that has a dual purpose of being able to, you know, take pictures of the equipment that we work on, so to speak. So it seems quite large, but that's the reason behind it.
Good, any other comments you wanna make before?
Other than that, like, the scope of the reason for the building is, you know, we manufacture in that small footprint, a certain area. 10% of our business, 10% of our business is fabrication right now, or manufacturing. And the equipment that's in that space is underutilized as a business right now. So right now, we're in the process of getting an e-commerce site up and going, and getting a marketing director involved. And to be able to showcase our products North American wide, we're working on our brand. And to utilize in that significant investment in equipment we have right now, we're gonna have to scale up to be able to store those products somewhere. So that we can ship on demand, once the website's up and going. So that's the whole intention and purpose behind the storage space on a particular property adjacent to where the residents will be. It's so that we can ramp up that area of manufacturing and capitalize on the equipment that we've already made a big investment on. And I foresee, you know, that 10-15% sales number, 10x over the next 5 to 10 years, and be able to support maybe 4 to 5 more jobs within that facility, as a result of being able to put this building up. So that kind of gives you a big picture of why we're putting the building up. It's not just to put a fancy apartment on a corner, which is, you know, what it kind of looks like to a degree. But, you know, worked hard my whole life. I don't have kids, you know, it'd be nice to have a little area of my own that is my own, you know, and then the residential property they're currently in that's adjacent to that. I can use that to rent it or possibly sell it, because currently right now. So, you know, that gives me some cash to be able to do some other things within the business, grow the business, etc. So that's kind of just give the council a good scope of what my intentions are with what I'm proposing here, so.
Good. Before I forget, anyone in the public want to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Seeing none, we're back to council questions and comments. So Councilor Wade, you're first, then Councilor Young.
I have a question and a comment. So this living space is all one level?
It's two levels.
Two levels,
There's a
okay.
mezzanine above.
What's that?
There's a mezzanine above.
Okay,
But you can't tell from the exterior of the building that there's a residence there. That was important for Kyle to make it look like part of the industrial building.
okay. And my second one is just a comment. When you got that much money invested with what you have in the property, I feel that if you have a residence on that property, that might be a big deterrent for would-be thieves. That's how I look at it. I think you got a lot of money invested in those buildings.
Well, absolutely, yeah, we have
And if
security.
someone's actually living there, or people know that there's someone there, I think that.
It's a big deterrent. We do a lot of high dollar accessories come out of there. Stainless steel is expensive. There's a lot of determining factors that goes on to our day-to-day business to be able to make a product of that nature. And yeah, it's a big part of it. Now, I do have the residence that I'm in right now. It comes in very handy. We have security, we have a well-lighted area. So it hasn't been a problem as to date. We did have an incident where a pickup got stolen back in the fall, but no, like, yeah. And I was able to recover that vehicle because I live so close to the property and was able to get on it and get it figured out right away. So, but yeah, so those are all benefits.
Councilor Young, you're next.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question might be more opposed to the CBO than Brad. Just want to make sure that seeing as there's gonna be heavy trucks backed in alongside of a residential, that there can be adequate ventilation in place to make sure that we don't have any CO buildup in the building like that. Just from the heavy trucks moving in and out.
Thank you, Councilor, through you, Mr. Mayor. There are requirements under the building code with respect to be able to service repair shops and mandatory requirements for ventilation engineering design. Ventilation to ensure that those types of safeguards are put in place. That type of design resolution, a level of design resolution come to be at the point of building permit application.
Other questions? Councilor Cookman.
Yeah, being the residents there in the warehousing, do you feel that there might be an impediment between the two occupations for that area? Like, is all the warehousing trucks coming in and going out, are they Just doing business
Should
hours.
not be, should not, basically the new proposed building will be for, basically a washing area, and, area to take pictures of our products. Kind of like a clean room, so to speak, and that'll be, you know, the residence area and, the garage attached to the residence area within that one building. Then there's a throughway, which allows us to wash the vehicles, and then on the, I guess would be the east side of the east side, that would be generally warehouse. No trucks should be in that area at all. Basically, we fill the racking. We'll put our bumpers, our visors, all the products, different products that we make will be warehoused in that area. And then we'll do a shipping and receiving for like UPS or Purolator to be able to come, or a loading ramp of some with forklifts to go to those palletize our product and ship them. That's more or less the use for that particular building. As far as trucks going in and out of that particular warehouse, I don't foresee that. Yes.
So you'll be able to sleep at night then.
I should be able to, you know.
Any other questions from council? Seeing none, therefore go to the public meeting to make a decision. No further questions or comments, Councilor Gilmore.
Just to the proponent, Tyler, are you okay with the recommendation for us to defer this at this point in time?
I'm in a certain scenario, just to make everybody aware, you know, business opportunities, I'm waiting to hire a marketing manager with what's going on, you know, I need to know, have a business plan in place for a warehouse, be able to pull a trigger in a sequence of events. So, you know, expediency is of the nature, I do have some key personnel I'd like to hire, but a lot of it hinges on the decision on what's gonna happen with this building. So that's the pressures I face as a business owner, to be able to kind of move forward and, you know, provide jobs to people in the area that, you know, can help us grow as a business. So, you know, there is some pressure for me to be able to move this in an expedient way. I hope with, you know, Thursday's meeting will be a very productive, you know, session with regards to the site plan. I believe we're on revision 7 at this point. To be able to kind of address all the issues that you know corresponds with Laurel and whatnot to move this, but you know, all I can do is say, you know, I'm at your mercy as far as what has to happen as far as process is concerned. I'm not looking to skirt that process in any way, shape, or form. But it's just a matter of, you know, what's best for the township, what's best for us as a business, and how to move forward. And I just, however we can do that efficiently and effectively is my position.
Any other questions? I have the same question as, or I was gonna ask the same thing, Laurel, how long is this process gonna take to say find the building?
Through you, Mary, I will talk to Julie as soon as she's back tomorrow, and we do have a meeting set up for Thursday to discuss the site plan. And just to clarify, we need to ensure that either the provisions of the zoning bylaw are being met, or we're including variances into their request, their zone change request. So whether they're requesting to be closer to the lot lines than the provisions allow, you know, that would have to be incorporated into the request for the site specific zoning, which it was not initially. It was just a request for an accessory dwelling unit, not for variances from the zoning bylaw. So if we meet on Thursday, we get comments, like I could bring a supplementary report back, you know, within a month.
Good. All right, so the expectation of council would be within a month.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. Just so we're aware.
Depending on the results of the site,
Yeah.
just as a cap, yes.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Seeing none, the motion and the rise from the public meeting, moved by Booker, seconded by Way, Council Riley, return to council. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. So now we're down to the decision on this, and the motion will be Councilor Gillis.
And move, obviously we defer at the time to go like mine, it's done. And planning staff has time to forward.
Okay, Councilor Pickard, your second the motion, any discussion on the motion? Councilor Yarborough.
I would just encourage all parties involved to make sure this moves through as quickly as possible.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay, so hopefully we'll see you next month.
Sounds good, thanks for your time.
Okay. We're now down to the Oxford County, planning. Additional residential unit, basically an update here, so. So, who's doing the, hello? Is it Eleanor? Is it?
Just Connor for short is great.
Okay. I'll write that down here, so don't forget. Okay, go ahead, take us away on this one.
Yeah. So good morning, council members and Mayor Mayberry. So you discovered, my name is Tommy Yeager, and I'm a new member to Oxford County's Policy Planning team. I'm joined today by Megan House, who is the co-lead of this project. And as you may remember, also led the previous updates to the official plan and the zoning bylaw for areas. Today, I will share some results of the preliminary review exploring how additional residential dwelling units or ARUs have been implemented in the rural towns. So to start with the background, in early 2023, the official plan was amended to add policies regarding ARUs in the rural townships that conformed to provincial legislative changes in 2019 and 2022. The townships that conformed, the townships of Southwest Oxford zoning bylaw came into force in effect on July 11th, 2023. And Township Council also passed a motion that planning staff report back once the amended bylaw provisions had been enforced in effect for at least 6 months to identify any implementation issues. And report on the number and nature of the variance applications submitted to facilitate AMU lease, which is part of this exercise. Subsequently, Bill 185 was passed in 2024, which further limited municipalities' ability to regulate aspects of ARUs in fully serviced settlement areas, specifically lot coverage, lot area, angular planning for space events. And I'll explain how this change affects the project later. So in terms of our project goals, we want to continue supporting the development of ARUs that are locally appropriate and are consistency with policy requirements. And to achieve that, we want to ensure zoning provisions and decisions conform to provincial policy and the county's official plan. Additionally, we want to improve the clarity of the zoning bylaw so staff use it day-to-day, find the implementation easier, more effective. And so potential applicants also find it easier to understand. Next slide, please. So to get into the review of the data set, the planning applications were between the date of the official plan policies being in effect, November 6th of 2024, for a total of 51 applications. The information provided today summarizes the combined result of all the municipalities together, just for consultation. What we found is most applications are occurring in the A1 and A2 zones. Almost all applications for ARUs are located in the detached accessory structure. And of those applications, about 1/5 only needed approval to permit the use. So most applications require additional relief from the provisions of the zoning bylaw. We also wanted to understand which specific zoning provisions or requirements are most likely to require implementation. What we found is maximum distance from the principal dwelling, maximum gross floor area for the ARU, and maximum lot coverage for accessory structures are the most frequently requested items of relief. What this result suggests is that applicants are motivated to build larger detached ARUs located further from the principal dwelling, and perhaps even outside of the established residential cluster and the agricultural reserve. We also wanted to understand how often planning report recommendations match the application's outcome. And in the cases where they did not match, explore why that was. This can reveal whether decision makers have a good understanding of the planning policies and the rationale behind them, or highlight where certain values, for example, the provision of housing, may be prioritized over other planning goals. Most frequently, a planning report recommends approval, and a council decides to approve the application. Right? And this occurs about 3/4 of the time in the data set. However, a planning report recommending refusal almost never had a matching outcome.
So for example, about 1/5 of the applications that were recommendations for refusal resulted in an approval or deferral. Next sentence. So why does this occur? We found that the size of the ARUs is likely the reason that planning report refusals are not reflected in the council decision. In these cases, maximum lot coverage for accessory structures and maximum gross floor area for ARUs happen more frequently and require greater amounts of relief compared to when planning reports recommended approval. Additionally, the research showed that certain land use safety and compatibility requirements are not being maintained by council decisions. Despite planning reports recommending refusal, proposals to permit an ARU in addition to a garden suite, to provide relief from MDS1, or to establish an ARU in a floodplain were all approved or deferred. So overall, these findings suggest that controlling a ARU size or meeting certain safety and compatibility requirements may not be well understood, or that other planning goals are being prioritized. Research also considered the prevalence and potential impact of when applicants convert an existing principal dwelling to an ARU and then construct a new principal dwelling. So for simplicity, I refer to this as a swap. We found that almost 40% of all applications involve a swap. The report discusses in greater detail the potential motivators for why swaps occur, but the important thing to understand is that, well, whether this phenomenon has an impact, and to remember that most applications are occurring outside the settlements in the agricultural reserve. So analysis determined that applications involved in a swap are more likely to request relief for both maximum gross floor area and distance from the principal dwelling compared to applications not involved in a swap. On average, swaps require greater amounts of relief or a distance from the principal dwelling. And on average, when a swap occurs, more land is used for dwelling space compared to when a swap is not. While there's no inherent problem with swapping dwelling types, decisions should consider whether they meet the intent of policy criteria for the agricultural area, which includes the size and location requirements we've noted. And our preliminary review considered that policy criteria. We found that the official plan policies, which were designed to meet local priorities, continue to meet the updated 2024 PPS. And it's important to understand that other accessory housing types, like on-farm residences for farm labor, are permitted subject to qualifying official plan criteria. ARUs are intended to provide an affordable housing option with added flexibility for certain policy requirements, however, are not intended to be second single detached dwellings. Ensuring an ARU is secondary and subordinate to the principal dwelling has beneficial impacts for the agricultural reserve. Land development is compact and efficient, for example. It ensures farmland is not removed unnecessarily and secures it for current or future agricultural uses. Agricultural land is a valuable resource, and often it's under pressure for non-agricultural uses. Keeping ARUs close to the principal dwelling is especially important as it reduces the expectation that can be severed, reduces impact to rural infrastructure, and reduces the likelihood of having a new sensitive residential use, creating a conflict with surrounding farm operations. Next slide, please. And lastly, it continues to be critical to meet provincial requirements for MDS and flooding to ensure people and property remain safe and that recreation uses are compatible with surrounding agricultural operations. Where ARUs are unable to meet requirements for compatibility or safety, or do not meet the intent of size and locational criteria, alternative locations or designs should be explored. Next slide, please. As noted, the research suggests that people want larger ARUs, and the value of maintaining size limitations may be misunderstood. So therefore, one of our proposed changes to the bylaw is shifting away from gross floor area to regulate all ARU size and accessory structures lot coverage. We learned that gross floor area has been implemented inconsistently across municipalities, and there may be better ways to regulate an ARU scale. Because gross floor area is used for a range of other land uses, the proposed changes are only intended to affect ARUs and accessory structures. So first, we propose to limit an ARU size through its habitable area instead of gross floor area. And this approach is used by other municipalities. And we believe having a distinct concept will be easier to understand and implement. We also propose to use ground floor area or the footprint of a building to calculate lot coverage. This would focus on managing on-site stormwater management and landscape open space instead of the floor area of multiple stories of a building. And other measures such as setback and height would still apply to the attached areas and accessory structures. With regard to definitions, we're also proposing to add definitions for distance from, detached ARU, and then amend the existing definition for principal dwelling. So defining distance from and detached ARU are intended to be minor amendments to make the existing requirements easier to calculate or improve the bylaw's overall precision when distinguishing between different types of areas. Whereas amending the definition of principal dwelling will clarify that the addition of an ARU does not change the principal dwelling into any other type of dwelling. So this last change I've noted is motivated by the research results, which reveal that swaps are relatively common in the rural area. But to be clear, this change is not intended to prohibit swaps. It will make the intended proposals more explicit when they do occur or when they are proposed. With regard to driveways, the official plan requires that all ARUs outside of the settlement must use the same driveway as the principal dwelling. And research and consultation with staff suggests that in addition to ARUs being located increasingly far from the principal dwelling, some are not sharing the same driveway. So without a bylaw provision, this official plan requirement is difficult to implement from a technical perspective. And we're proposing to add this provision that reflects this requirement. Again, the intention is to make it clear that ARUs located really far from the principal dwelling are not meeting other official plan requirements. With regard to detached ARUs, currently the official plan requires a minor variance to permit an ARU within a detached accessory structure and establishes limits to the maximum number of detached ARUs per lot. We are also proposing to state where planning approval is required and specify the maximum number of detached ARUs depending, of course, on the zone category. And again, the intent is just to improve clarity in the bylaw for what an existing permission is. With regard to most recent legislative changes through Bill 185, so now we're required that for fully serviced settlement areas, a lot containing an ARU may not be required to have a more restrictive lot area for an ARU. And municipalities must permit a maximum of 45% lot coverage for all buildings and structures where an ARU is established. Although, as noted in the research, most planning applications are happening in the agricultural reserve, we propose to amend these requirements for the R1 to R3 zone, the CC and the V zones where needed in service settlement areas to ensure the bylaw conforms to this provincial legislation. Lastly, we found opportunities to enhance the bylaw's clarity and consistency through technical changes. Examples include stating the official plan requirements with respect to garden suites, changing undefined terms to defined terms where appropriate, and removing duplication between the bylaw and the building code with respect to minimum building size. Ongoing feedback from township staff and simultaneous zoning bylaw consolidation work will inform what other changes can improve overall implementation. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, county staff are looking to receive initial feedback as well as a resolution from council based on the recommendations outlined in the report. Provided the request to initiate the amendment is received, further research, the drafting of provisions, and consultation with area municipal staff and council will continue. I would like to thank you all for your time today and extend my thanks to township staff for their ongoing assistance during the preliminary review. That concludes my presentation and I'm available for any questions.
Thanks very much. Questions from council? Councilor Gittens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Not really a question, but a comment. When I look at the proposals that come before us, my first question is always, is this going to harm anybody? And so, they've just outlined some of the variations that we've allowed within the township and a fairly significant number of them. In my mind, not many, if any of them have caused any harm to either the property owners or the neighbors thereof. But I still feel like I just got my knuckles wrapped. And so I'm just wondering, I guess. Are we supposed to be jumping all over these regulations more tightly? Or is it still a fair assessment that if it's not gonna cause harm, we should probably just get out of people's way?
So who wants that, getting your knuckles wrapped, well, you make the rules. So if you're not following your own rules, I guess maybe you're wrapping your own knuckles. I mean, council actually passed, all of the regulations for ARUs. Including the idea that we would come back and review and see how the rules work. So if we're not following our own rules, I guess that's up to us. So, staff is just reminding us that, I think also reminding us that the intent, particularly since most of ours are in agricultural areas, that we're trying to protect farmland at the same time. You can see having close to, the other, shared driveways, having in close proximity to the original house. The difference is for council is we actually get to deal with reality where, people come in and want something and it actually kind of makes sense to us, so you go ahead and allow it. It's good back to Councilor Wilkins' comment earlier, but, well, did we ever turn down a minor variance? So, anyways, I don't know, staff, do you want to make any comments on? You don't have to. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, very members of council. In Hannah, Megan and I have had hundreds of conversations about ARUs, detached ARUs, attached ARUs, internal ARUs over the past years, quite a while, and how to effectively plan for these, because we want to support additional housing, we want to support small footprint housing. And when the legislation changed to allow this type of housing, Oxford County embraced it. And tried to come up with a framework that made sense for all circumstances. And we've learned that there are things we will need to tweak as time goes on. I don't know if it's intended to be a wrapping of anyone's knuckles at all today. It's more of a, here's what we're seeing. Are there items that we wish to change? Hannah has done a ton of work. She has multiple spreadsheets that interact, looking at the trends and the approvals and the denials and the reasons for things. So, based on her extensive analysis, these are just recommendations, based on what we're seeing, understanding that every context is indeed different. As staff, what we try to do is maintain that in the agricultural area, maintain the integrity of the agricultural land while still trying to facilitate that smaller footprint housing. And I think, we're seeing that there's a wish to construct maybe not so small footprint housing and maybe not in the, within the sort of residential zone of the principal dwelling. So we're trying to figure out how to negotiate that, what makes sense, and what is reasonable. So I think I recommended approval where somebody is utilizing an existing infrastructure. So the Purdy application, for example, so they were converting their garden suite to a detached ARU because they were using the existing pad, the existing services, the existing driveway. So yes, it was a little farther from the principal dwelling, but I could rationalize, to me, that was reasonable because they weren't creating a new driveway across a field or taking out industrial land. So I think we're just trying to balance all of these issues and coming to you to say, what do you think and what is reasonable? And we try to analyze all these things with every application. It's just when we see consistency of variances, maybe it's time to take a look at whether or not to adjust that specific provision. So.
Just in answer to that, I want to make clear to county staff in particular that the decisions I make, the decisions we make as a body here are not intended to be, to ignore the recommendations from the department. But as the mayor suggested, we kind of understand probably the properties a little bit closer, having, living in the area. The one that pops to mind is the Dempsey, one that we just did last month. Yes, it was located a fair amount of distance away from the principal residence, but that used to be a trucking yard, right? So the the parking, the gravel infrastructure is already in place, you're not removing more farmland, right? And so some of those property specific things, I kind of like the way we do it now, where you take each one on its own merits and decide, does this make sense, does it not, right?
Any other comments? Councilor Pickard.
I'm wondering if there's any approvals that you think were done in error.
Yeah. Thank you for your question. The error, so I just want to remind the group on a broad sense. So the data presented is a consolidation of all the municipalities, right? And there's benefits to the approach. The more data, generally better, you make stronger conclusions about the trends that we see. Each municipality is gonna have its own case studies where everything is evaluated on its own merit. And with every figure that we're presenting in the report, some municipalities will meet those trends, some might fall a little bit outside of those trends. But I just want to remind the group, it's a consolidation of data. So, you know, that's one of the pros and cons of using quantitative analysis. I can't speak to each application on an application by application basis. But what I hope, or what I hope is presented in this report and presentation is just a reminder of the key planning principles that are important to remember when making these decisions. And for better or for worse, these are the balances that we all have to strike as decision makers and planners when involved in the planning process. We have to find those balances. And we understand housing is absolutely a really big priority. But I do think a reasonable balance can be struck with preserving those key kinds of agricultural land preservation or maintaining the intent of our official plan policies, while also recognizing that there are lots of opportunities to build housing outside of settlements and also inside settlements. So not much of a direct answer to your question.
Good answer.
Yeah, but I just thank you.
So, Laurel and sorry, then Megan.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Mayberry, just, so for example, instead of asking for specific files that we have made decisions on, if I received an application for a detached ARU on a farm property and the principal dwelling was here and the proposed ARU was 500 meters away, and in the back corner, and there was opportunity to locate it near the primary dwelling. But they wanted it back there just because they did. To me, that is not a reasonable justification for that distance. So that's where I would recommend refusal on that basis. We try to look at what is reasonable and take everything into consideration, but in the end, it is up to the Canadian and Council to make those decisions. And I like to think that we have a clear relationship and we can respectfully agree and disagree. These things.
Megan, you're next.
I am through the mayor to council. I just wanted to point out to you may have gotten lost in the report a little bit, is that the provincial planning statement has changed since we wrote the original official plan policies, and they actually have a number of criteria for areas in the agricultural area, and they've actually followed our model. So it bolsters our policies up top, I guess, and the province, I think they used our policies actually as a model for planning statement. So I think it just provides a bit more weight or importance to those.
Yeah, wait, Laurel or the other two, are just interested in the swaps and the discussion on that, and how can they get away with that? Like, what do? Just change which one they want as the ARU just because they think they can? Or is it the resident is there, it has to be, the ARU has to be designated on the size of that one? But how can they change it to make the new building, make that an ARU and then build another bigger building?
Through you, Mayor Mayberry, to my knowledge, there's nothing preventing people from declaring they will demolish a building. Is that how it's working? Demolish it? I'll let Hannah explain this because she is the expert. Thank you.
Mayor, thank you for your question. So My professional opinion is there's a lack of explicit direction from the province to begin with, if we look at the hierarchy of how we understand policy and direction. It's not explicitly prohibited in terms of swapping use. There's not really clarity even on sequentialism. It's just that one exists and the area is accessory to the principal dwelling. And because of that, I'll say gray area, municipalities are therefore tasked with deciding how best to approach it. And what most municipalities do, in my, again, professional opinion and reviewing the data and just from my experience working, is there's a degree of leniency. People decide, or municipalities decide to permit that swap to occur in the interest of developing housing. And sometimes how it happens is people will apply to demolish their initially established municipal dwelling, and then change their minds and will cancel that demolition permit, pay whatever fee is associated with the demolition cancellation, and then swap the use to facilitate that. So that is one general motivator. And then as the report kind of details, there is an impact on average in the data as a result of that happening. What we can see.
Another reason is the maximum size of a detached area is 50% of the main dwelling. If your main dwelling is 1,000 square feet, your max area could be 500 square feet. So people would then be applying for a variance to increase the size of their ARU, and then the ARU maybe end up being bigger than the principal dwelling. So, you know, that's another scenario where they're sort of swapped. But I agree with Hannah and Megan, like the lack of possibly clear direction from the province is part of what we're trying to work through.
Okay, other questions or comments? Go ahead, Greg.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to point out for the clarity here, I think the conversation here today by council and staff with the planning services, it's all been good and fruitful. I do want to remind council and both council and staff that the contemplation that the work done at this level, at the policy level, at the council level, in consideration and approval of ARUs in addition in dwelling units and minor variances and these types of matters, that the heavy lifting is over at that point. I'd like to remind council that it is in fact not. A significant burden of care is placed upon staff beyond and in continuance of your decisions at council to ensure that these matters and these bylaw amendments and the policy amendments that are implemented at provincial and municipal level are implemented continually and operational throughout the rest of the feasible lifespan of that unit. A lot of that care and consideration falls upon staff at the level of building permit issuance, review processes, by law enforcement staff, by fire operations. The level of complexity of what we're contemplating here today trickles down and carries on. So when you start to contemplate the idea that where's the harm in any of this, I'm not here to stand in judgment of where that harm might land or the checks and balances to how council might consider those harms. But what I will offer is that it's a continuum of care. The harms and the risks that arise out of this matter will continue with this matter as those areas and as we densify these types of areas in non-residential, non-serviced areas. Those impacts will resonate throughout time. This is not the first time that this matter has become an issue across the province. We've had housing crises before, and there have been policy approaches to address those crises. And we stand as testament to the outcome of those previous decisions. And the troubles that we have from an enforcement and an operational maintenance type of perspective are a result of those decisions. So just bringing to bear that the concept that, staff labor over exactly the things that you're laboring over for purpose of actually issuance of permits, making sure that the construction is done in accordance and abeyance with the bylaws, and then that the facilities are maintained safely and operation. Throughout the annals of time, I would say, so.
Thanks, Fred. Sorry, Nicole, move back up 2 slides to the intended policy requirements. Right there. The one that sort of probably spent more time than anything on going through and saying, because these really to me are, what is our focus? What are we really aiming for? And I thought this was very well done, so thank you to whoever did it. Because these are kind of, in my mind, the principles we should be, or principles we've stated that we want to do. And then, so my question to the council was, is there anything there that should be added as subtracted? Because in changing policy, you're actually changing principles too. So I'm just curious, because as I read through them, there's none there that I sort of go, you know, some are maybe a higher level of priority to me than others, but most of them are just, yeah, that's basically what I wanted out of this. We want to increase affordability and availability of housing, providing opportunities where we can. Certainly want to preserve farmland. I like the idea of compact development. I'm just wondering, is there any questions or comments from council on that particular slide? Councilor Booker.
Just one, and this is probably for Adam. Where do you see this when they're pushing for a second lane driveway or things like that?
Again, to me, as long as it makes sense, if the sightline, good drainage and everything else, makes sense, why not? But majority of everything so far has been using they have to use the primary access. I mean, there's lots of applications for the year for second entries on any property. So when we look at it case by case, as long as it makes sense. Well, as far as ARUs go, we have to use the primary residence, primary entrance.
So any questions from council or any thoughts on these principles that we want to maintain? Councilor, you have mine.
I would say there's nothing on this list that jumps out at me as being inappropriate or out of line with our goals. I think that covers it pretty well.
So if these are the principles, then in my mind, it becomes, how does the planning staff take the principles that we've actually given them, in this case they've given to us, but they were our intent. And I don't think, as you say, I don't think anybody will disagree with virtually anything there. And quite frankly, I think we've seen more flexibility in the application of, you know, in applications in the last few years than we have previously. I think there's more willingness to consider, you know, broadening the edges a little bit, so I'm actually fairly happy with it. As far as ending up deciding who, you know, the reason that, you know, the reason your council is a good job is to actually make decisions based on principles. And at times, you've got to kind of step beyond. Maybe we step a little too often beyond, but I think as long as each one of us is satisfied that this decision is right. I respect the fact that planning staff, we gave them a list of rules or a list of principles. And they say, well, this one kind of stretches it a bit, maybe you shouldn't. I respect that, but at the end of the day, I also say, well, there's 7 people here that are actually responsible for making the final yes, no. But doesn't matter whether I always agree or not, just, that's our job. Councilor Berger.
You know, you talk about the intent of policy requirements. One of the things I've noticed with ARUs is it helps in the transfer of the farm to the next generation. And, you know, that to me, that's really important. Mom and dad don't have to move to town. They can stay on the farm and help keep an eye on things. Conversely, if the family wants to move into the operation slowly, at least they can live in and get started. So I see this policy really helping the transfer of property to the next generation. I like it a lot for that reason.
Any other comments? Councillor White?
through the mayor to the planners. There's a fine line between ARUs and garden suites. In my, what I learn or think, an ARU is considered permanent. Whereas a garden suite, I think that right now, when you get one, it's good for 20 years, and the last time I talked to the clerk about it, said good for 20 years, but it can come back 4 times for 20-year extension, which makes a garden suite 100-year. Is that, you know what I mean? I'm just saying, and garden suites aren't to have basements, ARUs can have basements, but there are ARUs that are built with no basements. So are we the same as a garden suite compared to, like, it, will they ever phase out one and just have just an ARU?
So, there, Jen, for me, the key distinction between the two land uses of stack garden suites are, as you noted, are their temporary use. Leave the condition paradise there to be a well structure or non-government structure. Okay. So there's that piece. Garden suites are always or typically detached, so they're their own detached structure. Do garden suites occasionally get transformed into ARUs through amendment to the bylaw? Yes, that does happen. We do have examples of that. Will they stop happening? As somebody who's keen on data, the data will probably tell us that. I can't speak to that confidently, whether we're seeing a decrease in that happening. I am seeing them get changed to ARUs somewhat. Conversely, ARUs, permanent, as you noted. In addition to being detached, they can be attached to the main dwelling and in the basement. And they can take a variety of forms. They can be attached to the garage, for example, or an accessory structure. So to me, these are the kind of key differences. And because of the nature of permanency of ARUs, although garden suites, as I noted earlier, can turn into ARUs and become permanent. And that's why these principles in the agricultural reserve in particular are of utmost importance to ensure that we're meeting, because they're so permanent. Planning for me works on a long term consideration, so hopefully I see you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, so I would encourage you to continue on. I think what we heard today, and I think quite frankly, everybody on council would agree, location, like how close to the permanent residents are they, has been a bit of a challenge. And the other one is the size, right? Those are the two to me that kind of, in my mind, sort of seem to be the two subjects. And so I'd encourage staff to give that more consideration. And sort of say what does make sense. On the other hand, I actually agree with what some of the principles we've set out here and prepared for. I'm not sure how much swing room there is, and therefore it comes back to council has to decide. And so I want the best planning advice from the planning staff that I can get. And then whether I choose to follow it 100% or not is kind of up to me. So, I don't know. Any other comments? Other than thank you very much for today. And I would encourage you to continue on. I know there's a motion there. Folks. There are recommendations there, and I suspect they're in the motion. Right? Finished? Okay. So, does anyone want to make a motion to accept the next steps for the recommendation? Moved by Cricket, seconded by Bugner. And if I had the right page here, which motion is? Okay, the recommendation that council township should report CB 2025-234 for information purposes and so the township council direct staff proceed with initiating amendments to the township zoning bylaw under S34 of the Planning Act to support in improving the implementation of the additional residential unit policies within the Oxford County official plan. I guess that was your motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Okay, so when will we see these amendments?
Great question. Right now, we're in the process of reviewing the initial feedback that we received from a kind of a broad summary of the intended changes to staff. So we're collecting all that feedback and implementing it. And then following that, we're gonna be drafting the bylaw. And part of that will, I think, depend on the consolidation efforts. So we're working from a whole kind of clean copy of the bylaw. We can avoid any future errors. I believe the report says Q1 or 2 of 2026 to have a draft bylaw out to council, I believe. Yeah.
I was to make one other comment, and I just forgot, but I think Councillor Gillis and Yipno would probably concur with this. Before the province announced ARUs, I think it was in 22 or 3, our housing committee had already talked about it. And we're sort of starting to initiate that kind of conversation and since then, provinces, probably read some of our minutes or something. I mean, but anyway, move forward on it. But from my perspective, the good news is there's now, according to this, 51 new potential units. And that wouldn't have been without this policy. There may have been some garden streets and that sort of stuff. But says, well, you give a bit of flexibility and you get people who will pick it up on it. And I think that's in the need for housing today, I think that's probably a good thing. So I'm actually kind of pleased that I was supportive of ARUs when we first started talking about it, and then still am. So it's getting the rules right. I'll leave that in your daily work. Thanks very much.
Okay.
Okay, you want a 5-minute break? Okay, 5-minute break. It's been a long morning so far, but we'll still get one other bits. Oh, Brad is, okay, Brad, we're up to you, I was just trying to get over here, but. Okay, inactive and unclosed permits.
Mr. Mayor. Got it, wait for Denny.
Then you'll get everything, Mary, make a notes. All right. Go ahead, Brad.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council here. Sorry, turn this off. Before council today is a staff report on inactive, unclosed stale permits. So just a quick brief background. First off, I just want to make the remark that I'm under the impression that I'm essentially providing an update this topic to council. At this time, I may not have been involved in all previous discussions on this topic, but council has brought the topic up here during my time in Southwest Oxford, and staff are interested in seeing this report brought to council for purposes of providing that update and hopefully some direction and some clarity on the existing status of some of those related matters to this inventory of permits. So just to start off, the term stale permit, you may not have heard that term before. It's a term that's, I guess, colloquially used within the building biome, I guess, to describe permits that are inactive and open. And inactive open permits versus closed permits is a concept that I won't get too deep into today, but it is a bit of a ubiquitous term in that we don't open building permits and close building permits legislatively, legally. The processes that we're talking to speak to kind of the neither region between the issuance of a building permit and the end of construction under that process, or the revocation of the permit because something went wrong. So the idea that they can go stale is more to describe that the process of construction can be convoluted and complex, and sometimes things don't go as planned. And they become either stuck or forgot about, or there is miscommunication or unidentified results that are necessary in order to kind of put a period at the end of the sentence of the building permit issuance process. So beyond that, I do want to just highlight that the issue of stale permits in Southwest Oxford is not a unique situation by any means. I've dealt with this situation in each of the municipalities that I've acted as chief building official over the years, over 25 years. There hasn't been a single municipality I've worked for that did not have this particular issue or was not contemplating some way of addressing it over a long-term sustained process and actively seeking new and better ways to reduce these types of problems in their municipality. So Sane's been on council for keeping on top of this, and staff for also attempting to advance that interest in closing these permits. So quickly to highlight the nature of the report here, I've kind of picked up where staff has left off, thanks to Mary Ellen and Nicole and the rest of the clerical staff here. They helped me to very quickly gather an inventory of what they felt were as a list of not closed permits, I guess we'll call them. It's just various states of staleness, I guess we'll call it. That said, I do want to just highlight the fact that the data set that we are operating off of is fairly limited and collected via those terrible archaic means like handwritten notes and physically, signed permits. So our ability to collect that data and collate it and manipulate it for purposes of analytics is a bit limited. So I've broken that and this is pretty common to other processes that I've implemented. In reports that I've put before other councils. To kind of represent. By time period, what we feel is probably an accurate number. Of open permits. The first data set that we talk to in this is essentially the data set where we don't have actual analytics to propose to council here, and that's the subset of data that occurred for permits prior to the implementation of LRIS. And that happened in and around 93. Each of the lower tiers implemented LRIS, or the Land Resource Information System, at the Oxford County level. In around 93 or 94. I'm not sure of the exact date here in Southwest Oxford, but prior to that, everything was handwritten and added to property files. And I don't think there was a central kind of list that I'm aware of to speak to what permits were issued over what time, or what the status of those permits are. So we've set aside that data set. We're not really sure exactly how many of those remain unresolved. We don't have any information to offer on those. Beyond that, we do have the subset between 93 and 2002, which is essentially the digital era, where we were managing and tracking permits and the issuance of permits, inspections and enforcement via a database system, a variety of database systems actually. LRIS, as I've mentioned before. Amanda is another one that's a latecomer to the process here about less than 8 years ago. And then a variety of other record keeping software such as Excel spreadsheets, just basic stuff. In that subset, as council can see there's a substantial number of permits issued, but also a fairly substantial number of unclosed permits. Representationally, the close rate through that time is approximately 32% from my accounting skills, which are limited. But that is, I wouldn't call that outside of the realm of the usual for what I've seen in other circumstances. Moving on to the more recent data set there. So periods for data collected between 2022 and 2025. So that's the cloud permit era. Council's familiar enough with cloud permit, but it's online, web-based or cloud-based data management, permit tracking, issuance, application tracking as well, and process management for review processes and issuance. Far more robust suite of analytics available to us there, and data that's populated by means of the process, both applicant driven data and staff driven data, which is was good. So through review of the data set, far fewer permits issued, obviously smaller time period, but also a higher, substantially higher rate of closure through that period, which is good. I think analytically, I think that's indicative of improvements to the process, but also improvement in the quality of the data set, I think is probably a factor to that as well. So beyond that, throughout the rest of the body of the report there, just in highlight, I don't think I need to overly stress the nature and the risk that's inherent to these types of permits and the work that they represent, or the risk that they may potentially represent. I do want to highlight that not every scale permit, not every one of these is a ticking time bomb by any means, from a risk exposure perspective. It just might be that paperwork is lost, or that it could be that it's just awaiting a final reinspection, make sure that the lot grading is okay, right? There's a spectrum of what's out there in terms of work left to be done. Some of that work is low hanging fruit to a certain degree in terms of staff operational time to technically close the permit. The trick is to try and find those low hanging fruits and knock them off as quickly as possible. There's sometimes no way of specifically identifying which ones offer the lowest potential for risk or the easiest opportunity to close that permit. there's always the chance that you go out and you find out that something is completely sideways on a site, and then at that point you're in it. I do want to bring forward some new information there as relates to the Huther versus Sharp, the pending Ontario Court of Appeal ruling. That is still before the courts at this time, but if, I'm not sure how familiar council is with that ruling, but it did send substantial waves through the community in terms of the effect of the Limitations Act upon ultimate limitation in the opportunity for someone to claim some type of damage or tort against municipal authority as relates to the acts of construction and the roles and responsibilities of the municipality in their role as the jurisdictive authority in permitting, inspecting, and enforcing the building code. The decision's quite contrary to common sense in some cases, I would say, and the general understanding of the Limitations Act, where it was more than implied, it was assumed that there was an ultimate limitation period to some of these matters. I'm not an expert at it, but 20 years is essentially generally considered to be that limiting period. So work commencing before or substantially completed before 20 years ago from today, ultimately we were under the assumption that was not necessarily a risk that the municipality needed to consider as outstanding. That decision of that court ruling challenged that interpretation, and the appeal of that decision is ongoing. So that appeal and how and what weighs out from that decision may affect future policy by staff and interpretation by council as to what the best method is to move forward as relates to these types of limitation period questions in relation to building permits and the work that they entail. But we'll keep council apprised of that. Beyond that, yeah, as I said, I'm not gonna go through the header topics there for legal implications or financial implications on a note by note basis here. I do just want to draw attention, final note here that staff are aware of the problem, and that we are in the process of trying to refine our operational policy and put those changes into place as effectively and as quickly as we possibly can to mitigate the risk of further open permits resulting from our new pipeline of permits coming through the municipality, but also trying to address that backlog via a variety of means. So I don't, yeah, staff are pursuing these options. I can read the bullet points here from the staff action items, but pursuing options to create and implement procedural improvements, or creating policy and standard operating procedures to reduce further risk of continuance of these permits in a stale format. Undertaking review and amendment to the current building bylaw, further information council in subsequent meetings upcoming on that. Also the staff's position that we seek a legal opinion concerning these options and regarding re-inspection policies that we may want to create moving forward. And the completion of the annual report to give council some tangible idea of what the costs to this type of risk and these changes may be in the future. So without further ado here, I thank you for your time.
Okay, thanks, Brett. Questions on this report? Well, they're coming up with a few. First one I have is if you look at the system we use now through cloud permitting, are we going to be able to track and keep the number down to a more reasonable level? Or is this simply a product that construction kind of comes and goes and we don't quite finish it. So that's the first question, are we gonna be able to stay more on top of it and, you know, get ourselves, you know, and bringing your 75% close?
Yeah, I don't know that, through you, Mr. Mayor, to council here, I don't know that there is a perfect solution to this issue. Mostly because we're relying upon the diligence of the permit holder and the person enacting construction on their own property. Not everybody does, not everybody does work the same way. There's a major difference between a homeowner building a deck on their own property and someone building an office addition, a two-story office addition on a major industrial processing facility. It's actually in a lot of cases easier to bring a project like the industrial facility example to closure for permitting purposes and inspection and enforcement than it is in a deck scenario, because there are more people that are actively managing the project, and I don't want to call it a higher caliber of professionalism, but they're more interested in that end use and that professional kind of result. So whether or not perfection is achievable, I don't think that it is, but I do think that we should continue to aim at closing every permit that we possibly can. And ultimately, beyond the status of it being closed or open, at the very least, address any inherent risks as relates to occupant health and safety, protection of the public or the occupants of the building at the very least, despite or notwithstanding the closed status of the work under that permit.
So the nice thing about buildings or decks or whatever else is they tend not to get up and run away.
Correct.
So they tend to stay where they are, and therefore, one way or another, whether we have access or not, we know where they are and we can go and do the inspection. Or before, that leads to the legal question, but before we get to that, thinking about the pre-93 or 4 era. First of all, it was a time when the building drainage and bylaw enforcement all in the same.
Don't forget facilities management.
And well, maybe,
Yeah.
but anyways, his title was so street. And the opportunity for a whole lot of stuff to get missed pretty high. And so I guess I'm wondering how much effort we should put into trying to, like, if I don't see them as probably the most critical ones to worry about. What I'm concerned about then is between 2022 and going back to the 90s, where in my mind, you would say, what are the building permits that stand out that have the greatest potential safety impact to the community or to the individual? And if I were, you know, you call it low hanging fruit, if I were saying, I'd be picking the fruit that I think is closest to being right and needs to be dealt with right away, not in 5 years time. So I'm just wondering how you see that, and is there some types of permits that you sort of go, we really should jump on those, or is there others that simply, you know, chances of that deck's falling down after 20 years are pretty low, other than it's brought it out and needs to be replaced anyway, so just curious.
So for, thank you, Mr. Mayor, further to your point, yeah, no, I would agree. That they don't tend to get up and run away. The one thing that I would add to the line of reasoning there is they do tend to age out poorly, especially the poorly constructed ones in the first place. So Huther versus Sharp is an interesting case in that vein, in that this was a very old build. We're talking about in the 80s. And it was brought to light that there were deficiencies via a home inspection process at the point of transaction between purchaser and seller. So there is an inherent risk to these things just by your, and I'm not talking that, I won't go into great detail on this particular case, but these are not, this was a settling foundation. This was not a situation where all of a sudden, you know, something happened and it critically failed. This was settlement of a foundation is not something that happens immediately. Usually, unless a sinkhole happens, but so the nature of the risk to these types of permits can be a bit clandestine or insidious in some cases, where it creeps up on you from behind almost. And it's not something that you originally anticipated as being a particularly risky or high priority target for review and taking on, you know, a more active or a proactive approach to kind of tackling those issues. If that particular building in that case was before us and we were trying to create an operational policy to address the highest, riskiest permits that were outstanding in our municipality, I would suggest that that particular example, and I can't speak to it personally because it wasn't around here, probably wouldn't have been on our radar by that metric. And that's that is a bit of the issue that has people the most concerned, is that these things can just jump out at you and have these massive effects. So I am interested in seeing how that turns out before the courts. When and if it does happen, I will let council know as quickly as possible. But to further to your approach, yeah, there's definitely I call it a SWOT approach, like a strength, weakness, opportunity, threat type of approach that we can take to identify both the occurrences and like the frequency of these occurrences, and the ability to kind of narrow down our focus on some of the higher priority ones, the ones that have the biggest adverse risk to the public, to the occupant of the building. But also we want to be able to narrow down the target range as quickly as possible. If we know that some of these are easy to address, then it's good to get them out of the way as quickly as possible. Even though they may not be prioritized as higher risk immediately, you like to have them out of your way, nonetheless. But
Yeah, fair enough. Before we go on, any other questions from the council, and then I just got one more. Okay, the other question I had was around the legal ability to go into something that was 15 years ago. And we noticed that we didn't, I mean, sorry, two problems. One is, how much has that building changed in 15 years, i.e. I finished the basement with or without permission. And you know, or I did a bunch of my own wiring, that sort of stuff. I'm just wondering, do we have the right to, and I think it would be a good idea, and turn it over to Mary Ellen, a good idea for us to get a sense of what are other municipalities doing, or are we all kind of, oh, we'll just close our eyes and hope it goes away. Because if we have a problem in the future, and like that tells me that people tend to sue more rather than less now, especially as things become more difficult, then any excuse under the sun is a good excuse to sue for something. So I'm just wondering if we don't want to keep pushing, and then the final comment would be the state's time. And do we have the staff to actually get out there and do some of this work? Right.
So that information is gonna be flowing back to council, and we are looking at getting legal opinions as needed, depending on what the issue is.
Is there a generic legal opinion that, you know, up 5 years or 3 years or whatever, you're perfectly free, but after that, it becomes, I don't know, I'm asking.
I don't know either.
Okay.
I would offer that there used to be somewhat of an answer to that prior to maybe last year, when this question of Luther versus Sharp, and another interesting topic that I can forward to council if they're interested in this topic, is the Township of Lake Bays decision versus, I can't remember the name of the appellant there, but that one has some precedent setting implications to sale permits, and the operational kind of procedures that building departments currently undertake to mitigate those types of risks. They were counterintuitive or counter to popular legal opinions provided to municipalities at that time. So very, very much this needle is moving currently. across the province. As I said at the beginning, this is not a uniquely Oxford County or regional issue that, or not, certainly not Southwest Oxford. This is, yeah, this is province-wide, if not nationwide, this issue of, what happens when buildings just stop being built. And I call back upon this, routinely as when I instruct, building inspectors, new building inspectors that come into, this field, is that the Building Code Act, the reference to the building in the Building Code Act is the adverb sense of the word building, in that it's the act of building that is being regulated under the act. What happens when buildings stop being built is subject to a litany of other considerations in law. And sometimes collaboratively with the Building Code, and sometimes not necessarily collaboratively with the Building Code Act. So it's pretty nuanced and pretty complicated stuff. And it's certainly in limbo right now. The concept is in limbo right now, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, do we have a motion to receive the recommendation? Moved by Gillis, seconded by Gersten, Bill, Council Times of Silver Report BDO 8/2025, inactive unclosed stale permits, update report as information, further the council recognizes. And we're going to problem that open unclosed stale building permits and accompanying risk associated with incomplete, uninspected, and potentially deficient construction posed to our community, and the need to reduce the number of stale permits held by the building department as a priority for staff creating policy community for risks associated with stale building permit. So, okay, that council supports. Thank you. They would have considered that all part of the report. Staff report, staff. Council supports staff efforts to pursue options in creating and implementing procedural improvements to building department operations with specific interest in reducing the number of stale permits in the township, and staff in creating policy and standard operational procedures to further reduce the risk of permitted construction work continuing without code prescribed required inspections. Staff in undertaking the review and amendment to the township's current building bylaw to address updates to enable the above noted improvements, and also to create a formative procedure for the builders deposit program. Staff to seek legal opinion with respect to options regarding re-inspections of property where no occupancy permit was issued, but occupancy has occurred and as relates to reducing the balance of money held in the account builders deposit, and staff in undertaking the prescribed annual report process to assess the direct and indirect costs associated with the enforcement of building code and building bylaws, specifically in the interest of reducing the number of stale building permits in the township. Anybody need that repeated? Any discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. All right, do we have lunch? What? No, I meant, you wanted to say something.
So the next report is from fire chief, is the fire chief?
No, we have one more before that.
I've got a building one still.
Oh, sorry.
What, which one?
Mr. Fry was not made aware that the 10:20 time line was for him. Someone told him it was supposed to be 9:30, I don't know who, so he's asked to reschedule.
Oh, okay. Sorry, with you, Shane? Thanks.
Through the mayor, absolutely. He did indicate that earlier in the email to Dana, sent me an email saying that he wasn't aware that it was a 10:20, not a 9:20, so. But I'm happy to talk to my report anyway, regardless, as well as the council's question regarding the fire ban. So.
Okay. So, just wondering, do we want to break for lunch now and then come back? Councilor,
I will have to leave after lunch, we just do this two reports.
okay. Anybody disagree with that? Hey Brad, how fast can you do the monthly activity report?
I will make it significantly shorter than the last report. Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Before you use the monthly activity report for the building department, quick highlights here: 14 permits issued in the month of July, 13 applications taken in various stages of review. two issued. From that intake and one was revoked, I think it was an application made outside of the township, people get confused about. Beyond that, just a highlight item here, for council's consideration, this is a form that, I've, adopted from other operations to help with the expediting of the review process at intake for new building permit applications. The hopes here are that it brings to bear some of the most common hurdles or sometimes difficulties with a building permit application to construct buildings in Southwest Oxford, that being compliance with the zoning bylaw, site plan control, minor variance related items that have already been considered by council or staff in coordination with the application. Conservation Authorities Act, some what we term as applicable law related tests that are very, very common to most building permit applications. What this does is it offers an opportunity for the applicant to declare those things very quickly, and for staff at other than the chief building official level to at a glance quickly identify any perceived issues that need to be addressed as quickly as possible for the sake of expediting the review process, but also to identify any discrepancies or non-compliance related items with applicable laws quickly in the process as possible. The one complaint we get at the building department often is that, well, no one told me I had to do this, that, or the other thing earlier. Sometimes that's a communication breakdown on our part procedurally throughout staff, but more often than not, it's just a matter of staff didn't have the opportunity to ask you any earlier than you know that you submitted the application for this information. And we appreciate that it's a complicated situation. We do want to make sure that it gets identified as quickly as possible, and that we can remediate those types of issues or clarify the issues as quickly as possible. So this is just a tool it's essentially an applicable law checklist is really what it comes down to. Make sure that the applicant hasn't skipped a step or misidentified something that they thought was okay. So that is inclusive of some illustrations there. Those are illustrations provided in our zoning bylaw that are addendum to the zoning bylaw, but don't constitute part of the zoning bylaw. They illustrate the definition of height of buildings, which, as council knows, is a quite a common minor variance consideration that we consider all the time. And then our illustration of lot definitions and the required yards and setbacks and how that's all perceived, it can be very, very especially for the average person that's not used to these types of things. So that is just for council's consideration there. Any questions or concerns?
That's further to first.
So this form, will you fill this out with the applicant, or are you just gonna hand it to the applicant and say, here, fill it out?
Quite often, our approach is we provide it to the applicant with the complete application package. They fill it out to the best of their ability, and if they have portions of the application for this document that are incomplete, that's automatically going to trigger staff to say, you didn't provide your interior yard setbacks. Well, it's because I didn't understand what interior yard setback. Okay, well, we can help you with that. We'll complete that part of the process. Sometimes they've not completed that part of the process because they've identified that there might be a problem. So it also begins an uncomfortable conversation where they end up having to acknowledge the fact that we need to come back to council for a minor variance because your side yard or whatever other thing. One way or another, it does its job to trigger that conversation or to provide confirmation that compliance is there, right? That we can move past them.
Through the mayor, I'm real concerned about this from a service standpoint, because I think the average person isn't gonna know what a lot of this means.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I agree. And that is part of the nature of the application process. I was speaking earlier to that point, during the ARU presentation, is that as we change these policies, as the province changes the regulations, as we change our own bylaws, these rules and interpretations and the technical nuance that comes with them changes over time. So even though someone may know what the difference between an interior yard and an exterior yard is, they may not necessarily know how that affects an ARU application or some other thing. And it offers an opportunity for staff to, as quickly as possible, identify that and be able to tackle that issue, and whether or not it's something that is solvable at the time of initial application intake, or whether that means that it has to beget some other process, preceding process to the application. The universal complaint we get is that, well, we've been at building design and application and re-review, and you know, you've asked for new drawings and all of these things, and now you're telling me I have to go and get a minor variance. That's what we want to try and avoid as often as possible. Sometimes it's just a matter of providing the correct amount of information, and sometimes it's clarity of information provided that that ends up being the issue.
So under number one, for example, how would they know what's required for the result for the front yard, rear yard, interior yard? How would they know how to fill out the required?
So it would be as per the link right above it in the section 1 provision, so that leads you directly to the Township Southwest Oxford zoning bylaw. That's available online, it's available at desktop copy here. It does require people to do.
Yeah, they gotta do some work.
They gotta do some work, but I mean, the assumption is that they're coming to the desk at this point, knowing that they had to do work anyway. They needed to get construction plans, they needed to do a site, but generally speaking, most applications require basic construction plans, a site sketch, confirmation of these types of complete application form. There's work to this stuff. It's more than that. I call it the toll booth approach, where they throw money at the toll wicket and carry on with their day. That's not how building permit processes work. So.
Well, I wonder if Councillor Pickett isn't actually asking, does there need to be some type of coaching to get through this application? Right, what is required? Well, what's front yard setback? Because what's required, and then you go home and measure and say, oh, I made it or I didn't.
Right.
That's, and that part in my mind is, kind of the service center, is making sure that when they walk out the door, they have a pretty good understanding, it would be 100% pretty good understanding what was required. Then they go home and do it, so.
Right.
Now, granted, that could be in the zoning bylaw, but if I were, new to it, I wouldn't know whether I'm R1, R2, or A3, right, so those kind of things, right?
Yeah, it's similar in a way to planning applications, minor variance and zoning, where there are people who are very comfortable filling in an application. And there's others who call and say, I need to make an appointment, with someone to help me through this process. So that I think would be our approach, and depending on the demand, for assistance, it could very well mean a service level adjustment. As far as, we're going to get a lot of these, then how do we make sure that it's done properly and helping the public where they need it?
So what I'm saying here is, let's make sure this is an improvement. Because we get a lot, we get complaints about like the time it takes to get things done. That's a common theme. So let's make sure this doesn't make things worse. As the mayor says, if this is if coaching is involved in this, I can see it, really what. But if somebody says, here, you gotta fill this in, it's part of your application, because there's other forms besides this.
And so asking, do you require any assistance?
Yeah, because they gotta go out knowing what to do.
Right.
Okay. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Councilor Pickett's approach to this issue. it is important to engage with the applicant on the process of completing the application process as early, in that same ability, but it's not a process that you can just kind of build it on the fly as you build the building. And that sometimes, I mean, that seems obvious to all of us in this room here today. But I can tell you from experience that it's not as self-evident to people when they come in for a building permit. Well, why do I need to know what the setback was to my fence when I build my deck? Before I'll tell you what it is when I'm done building the deck. I'm not joking, that is, I've heard that so many times, it's what I call a necessary conversation about the nature of the building permitted process, inspections, and the building code, what everybody's here to do. Yeah, that takes time. The coaching in and of itself takes time. It also takes staff. And it takes a level of professionalism and comfort with all of these things that the average person doesn't have. And we're willing to provide that to the public, but it's as Mary Ellen has pointed out, it is sometimes commensurate with a service level increase at some certain point. If it's risk reward wise beneficial to do that, then that's something that we would talk to council about if that was necessary. But the other thing that I do want to point out about the form is this isn't just the things that we control. These are, this form has to do with things that are outside of the scope of our control, outside of chief building officials' control and councils, in that they are applicable law to the legal issuance of a permit. If you need a fill permit from the conservation authority before you build a building on your property, that's a do not pass go, do not collect $200 prerequisite to the issuance of a building permit under the Building Code Act. That's not something that I have the latitude to defer or to decide to omit. The faster we identify that, faster the process to getting to a compliant state for permit issuance, if it's possible, that sometimes I equivocated to ripping the Band-Aid off. Sometimes people aren't gonna get building permits for some of the things that they want to do. Not because we don't want them to do them, but because the law says that something else has to happen first.
Any further questions? We have a motion here to receive this information, moved and seconded, moved by Way, second by Rubner. So the council attention, Secretary of Student Report, BDO 2025, Building Department monthly activity report is information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. And Shane.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through the mayor to council. With council's indulgence, I would like to address Council Pickett's question as well after this one regarding the fire ban. So again, this council's so the report before you, Mr. Pye was in here earlier. He was here at 9:20 and regrettably could not wait until the 10:20 time slot. Again, he indicated that he would reschedule his delegation to council. Mr. Pye and I have previously discussed this incident as well as the invoice. And he was not satisfied with my response and the invoice, obviously, and requested a delegation before council to voice his concerns and displeasure, which is well within his prerogative and our delegation process. The report outlines council's approval of the open air burning bylaw and the fees and charges bylaw in 2024. The bylaws work together to enhance public safety and reduce the frequency of illegal burning, prevent unnecessary deployment of fire personnel and apparatus, minimize the environmental and nuisance impact of uncontrolled burns, and assign financial responsibility for non-compliance to the offender, not the broader tax base. The report further provides a background on the bylaw and policy, details of the unauthorized burn, a breakdown of the invoice, a 5-year historical incident data summary, and the recommendations of the fire chief. I would also just advise council that any decision away from the bylaw provisions may be precedent setting And other already invoice or future invoices may be affected to that. So I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Any questions on this? Seeing none, you wanna talk about the fire ban for a minute?
Absolutely. So, through the mayor to council, and again, thank you to Councilor Pickard for this question and the opportunity to explain the local fire ban process to council and the public. Natural Resource Canada publishes fire weather indexes and fire danger maps. So these maps use a number of sources of information to inform and develop the fire weather and fire danger maps that are updated daily and provide a previous and next day forecast as well. These maps are developed based on fire risks for forested areas throughout Canada. Fire services and emergency management monitor and use these maps as objective data sources to help determine local fire ban needs. When they trend greater than 20, we consider fire bans given different risks associated with rural, agricultural and settled areas. The fire weather index has been below 20 for most of the season and exceeded 20 yesterday. It dipped back below 20 today and is forecasted less than 5 tomorrow due to the rain in the forecast. Although 2 Oxford chiefs have recently imposed fire bans, the majority of Oxford County are waiting until tomorrow to determine the need for a fire ban, and I support the process for determining the bans for our community. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on that as well.
Okay. Any questions from council? Councilor Pickard.
Through you, Mr. So this is something that you're on top of this all the time, right? People don't have, you know, they see Zora did a fire ban, they have to say, oh, we're gonna do one. Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay, any other questions? So yesterday on radio, I heard that Oxford, Elgin, and Middlesex had all declared fire bans, but its own portions of, okay, the chief of South Walter was being interviewed. And so, okay, because I had the same question, we didn't know we declared a fire ban, but I didn't have one. So, okay, anything further for the fire chief? Go ahead, sorry.
Just if I may, counsel, again, just to be brief, the reason before is, in my past lives, I believe fire chiefs would go out and go, yeah, it's fire ban. So we kind of created this objective criteria based on the Natural Resource Canada maps. I encourage you to go there, look at them. They're actually very detailed maps. And that's what we use to kind of set the guidelines. And then typically what happens is once we kind of get close, like we have been, the fire chiefs of the area will sit down, because it does make sense that, you know, because it obviously begs the question, why is the Southwest Oxford in a fire ban when Woodstock is, or when Zora declares? So again, there should be some coordination, but ultimately it's up to the local fire chief to determine, so.
Okay, Denny, you want to say?
There's a recommendation before council, how do you want to proceed with that? Did you want to just prefer it, almost like that?
Yeah.
Daily, one second with the letter.
We'll get to that in just a second. So anything further for the fire chief? Being none, all right, the recommendation here is, we have pulled the fees and charges levy. So we need a deferral on that. So I think the motion would be that we defer the recommendation from the report FP 2025-003 till the next meeting. Or defer it, I guess. Do we have a motion that way? Moved by Yipman, seconded by Gillis. Agreeable to deferring to the next meeting. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. All right, break for lunch and then back at this culture. Get back at after 1.